Welcome to the Legged Sportscast. It's me, Andy Grant.
It's me, Jordan Neild. This week... Oh,
go ahead, you crack on.
This week we've got another guest, Mr. Nick Peet. I wrote a little thing to try and introduce you, but the list's quite long. So you got journalist, broadcaster, podcaster.
Yeah, done quite a few bits, yeah, exactly. Karaoke singer, boss dancer, you name it.
I was telling him the story as well about you can enlighten us a little bit more, the commissioner story from your own podcast, The Fight Disciples.
Yeah, so what happened was we were talking about the situation in the UFC in the lightweight division after Khabib retired, and we were talking on a podcast, and I said, you know what, because you've got the champion who was so far and above better than everybody else in his weight division retiring at the top, vacating the belt, we've got this mad situation where you've got all these other fighters, they could all beat each other on any given Sunday. We should pick 8 and put them in a tournament, and we'll have a tournament bracket and we'll bring it through to a final. So I was like, yeah, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. And Adam was like, fucking, who do you think you are, the commissioner of the UFC? And I went, that's a boss idea. Next thing you know, the UFC put it into operation. So we go out to Fight Island, and Conor's on there, Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, like 4 of the guys who I'd mentioned in this tournament. So on the way to the press conference, the lads at BT, the crew and Adam and all that winding me up going, you've got to get up and just ask it. Usually people get up and ask the same shite questions. Just get up and own it, and we'll film it because we'll use it on BT Sport as part of our show. Fuck the UFC content. We'll just get our own narrative out of it. So straight away I'm like, won't get me the microphone. So it just stands up. Dana, as commissioner of the UFC. And at the time I'm thinking nothing of it. As commissioner, I just want to say we're going to have this tournament bracket, and I want to ask all the fighters on the stage, are you signed up to be in this tournament? The lightweight tournament. We'll do an elimination, find a new champion. And straight away, Conor just got it. Yeah. Conor McGregor just went, count me in, count me in. And I was like, yes, Conor. Because once you got in, you're in. Dustin. And he's like, yeah, count me in. And I'm like, Dan. And Dan Hooker's from New Zealand going, I've got no idea what you've just said, but count me in. So they all agreed to it. And obviously I sit down, fucking great. Thought nothing of it. Thought, yeah, we've got that for our BT Sports show. That'd be brilliant. And then turn my phone on, and like, then only then you realise it's a Conor McGregor press conference that goes global, and literally me Twitter just went berserk. I had about 5,000 new followers, and was just like, how mad's that? So that was it. I thought, fuck it, I'll change my name to the commissioner. So on Twitter, I'm the commissioner now. Just joking. And everyone, like, look, people I've known for years, like Bellew messaged me going, what the fuck are you doing? That's hilarious.
That's brilliant.
But I didn't even think about it at the time, but now it's just stuff.
Only a scout could do that. Because as you say, at them press conferences, like, people still stand up and they say, how's your camp gone? Are you ready for the fight? But only a scout could stand up.
Well, what people don't realise at them press conferences, especially UFC, if you watch a lot of them, you'll realise that John Morgan from Made Junkie always wears a blue shirt, blah, blah. He gets the first question. And then there's a guy from the Mac Life gets one of the first questions. A guy from MMA Fighting, he gets the next question. The 3 of them, because those 3 travel all over the world to every single UFC event, and they're always there. So that's how they kind of do it. Those 3 have the microphone first, then he kind of open it to the floor. But what people don't realise is those 3 have a conversation beforehand going, well, I'm going to ask Conor this, so you ask Dustin that. So they're not hogging the mic, but they kind of have it pre-planned. Yeah. And my way of journalism, I was always taught from a young age, and always, this is why I didn't cover football when I was at the Echo. I didn't fall in love with being a football journalist, and we'll probably come on to that, but being a football journalist, you're hunting a pack. The Nationals, if someone from the Daily Mirror gets a story, he gives it to his mate at the Daily Telegraph so he doesn't miss out. They share their exclusives around so no one stitches each other up, and it's all like a little happy family. And I hated that side of it and just thought, no way, man. If you're a good journalist, you go out there, you get your own stories, you get your exclusives. And if you miss an exclusive, you should build that contact better, build that relationship more and whatever else. So I always hate the way that, not against those 3 lads, they're all sound, but I always think, it's all pre-planned, and the UFC like it because they're never going to ask anything too pertinent. It's always about the fight and how you train and all that. And anyway, I just thought, fucking, give me the microphone, right? I'm the commissioner. Dana White was just looking, and then at the end, when he all agreed, I went, Dana, you're welcome. Yes, yeah. And he just looked at me as if to go, who the fuck are you? Mad. But then we interviewed, I think Adam interviewed Dana the next day, like in a one-on-one sit-down in the hotel, and he just comes in, makes a beeline for me straight away. Then, that was funny, blah, blah, blah. So,
what Dana did to you?
Yeah. But then, I've been speaking to Dana for over 10 years. He probably doesn't realise that,
That's mad, isn't it?
I think for the fighters, though, sorry to cut you off, but for the fighters, it must be so refreshing when you get to answer something that's not, you know, the run-of-the-mill question, as you say, and they probably, when you've done 5 or 6, you probably know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
You know where people are coming from. So to see someone stand up, they thought, oh yeah, kicking off here.
It was just getting Conor to bite straight away. That's the key.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the key to any good interview, really. You know, of course you do your research. Social media makes the world so much easier now, because you can look at someone, what they've been up to for the last 12 months before you even put a microphone in the face. But I think the key to a good interview is just throwing someone off a little bit, take them away from it. You know, I know what you're here for. I know you're weight cutting. I know you're fighting in 2 days, but I don't give a fuck about any of that. See on your social media the other day, you were, you know, visiting such and such a cathedral. What was that all about? Or, you know, noticed your daughter was in a play the other day. What play was it? Just take them away from that moment, and then you literally see, like, people's fighters especially, they'll come down, and I know you had Luke Willis on the other week. Once you get beyond it, within fight week, you're training, your camp, the fight, they don't want to talk about that. That's the last thing they want. So always try and throw them off.
I think that Conor McGregor thing as well, it's that, I mean, I was doing it last night, you know, you see kind of the highlight of his press conferences, and whoever's asking the question, if it's a good question, it gets a good response, those things can go viral.
Yeah.
So the fact that, like you say, you've got Conor hooked in on it, it's like the red panty moment in it. It's like those moments can just explode, can't they, when he's involved in it.
That's the world we live in, innit? That they're the little snippets, that, you know, the little viral moments. That's what everyone's searching for. But going back, obviously, onto the media stuff, we've spoke about this, about the Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, and obviously her refusal to do media. In my opinion, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, I think it must be monotonous, especially in a tennis sort of environment, when you're playing every day. You know, you're shoveled in straight after your game.
Yeah. You
know, the relationship between media and athlete in all sports has got to change, hasn't it, in terms of, like, you know, the whole quality of it going up, because a lot, as you say, probably that first questioning thing is probably rife in that sport as well. And if she's going in and she's sort of like, I've just played bad, and someone's going to say to me, you lost today, do you know what I mean? Think, you know,
it's like the us and them. It feels a bit like, I don't know, it's what it's like in the fight world, but do you feel like there's a distinct kind of us and them, or is it a bit more merged?
I think in the fight world, it's definitely more merged, which is why I cover fight sports. You know, fighters are incredible, and they've got incredible backstories, and, you know, count on one hand, and we're talking about American fighters now, who have been media trained, and they've only been media trained because they were in the American Olympic squad or whatever it may be. Yeah. Very rarely do you get any fighters, certainly British fighters, who've had any kind of media training whatsoever. In fact, quite the opposite. I've many times volunteered and said to fighters from Liverpool especially, do you want to do some media training with me? Like, do you want me to help you, prepare for press conferences and whatever else? Like, there was a time when Terry Etten was in the UFC. It was funny, I was with Terry last night. Our kids go to the same wrestling class, and we were chatting about old times and stuff, and he was Liverpool's first UFC fighter. And we'd be in, like, I don't know, California or Vegas, and he'd just won a fight. And Terry he just hated doing media. It just wasn't in his personality. Really shy fella, really, Terry. Incredible fighter, but when it came to media, he just wasn't into it at all. And so I'd grab him before the press conference started and be like, right, I'm going to get... Because I knew no one's going to ask Terry Etten the first question. They'll ask whoever's been the main event, or the Americans will focus on the Americans. So I used to be like that to Terry, right, this is what I'm going to ask you. So your answer needs to be X, Y, Z. And try and kind of coach him to give us a better answer, because ultimately you talk about viral moments and the strength of social media, and now the tennis player, she's held her hand up and gone, this is killing me, I can't compete anymore because I've got so much anxiety about speaking to media that it's taken away from my performance. Fantastic that she's able to do that. Fantastic that she's able to go, you know, I'm not competing here because I've got anxiety here, and she needs help, she needs support, she needs to come through it. But I don't know many fighters that have got that can go, you know what, I'm not going to take that fight because I don't want to do the media afterwards. You've got to do the media. Yeah. In fact, if they don't do the media, they won't sell any tickets. 100%. So the promoters won't put them on the cards. So if you're a fighter, you've got no choice. Even if you get to the UFC and go, well, I'm one of the best in the world. Just don't. Rocky Edwards from Birmingham at the moment, one of the best fighters in the world, second best 170 on the planet, hates doing media, but he knows he's got to do media. And I think there's a lot you can learn. Like, over the years, I remember when I was at Fighters Only, we used to speak about Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen was the best trash talker the UFC had ever had before Conor came along. He was the man. And you'd be like, oh my God, he's got a silver tongue, it's just unreal. And you look forward to interviewing him, look forward to his press conferences. And then I was interviewing him one day for a magazine interview, a bit more in depth, and he revealed, oh yeah, well, you know, I have a fellow who writes stuff for me. And there was a rapper from America, from his hometown, that they used to sit down before media, and the rapper would help him put stuff together. So he would go in there with preconceived verses, sayings, not necessarily rhymes like Ali, but he knew in the back of his mind what he wanted to say. And I can't emphasise that enough, especially with young fighters. I'm like, don't ever do a podcast or a media or an interview without your own agenda. Like, go in there going, this is what I'm going to say today. Yeah. This is what I'm going to deliver. And don't wait for them to go, you've lost two of your last 6, but, you know, how you've... Just go, never mind about 2 of the last 6. Let me tell you about this. That's
my point entirely in terms of it's too structured. It's too, you never really get to see people's, especially in stuff like tennis and that, you don't get to see people's personality. Yeah. So the media have got to improve in terms of bringing that out, and the athletes have got to improve in giving that out. Because who watches a tennis press conference apart from, like, you know, diehards? Yeah. People don't care, and you have to make people care. And just to obviously keep it with combat sport, Colby Covington was very similar, wasn't he? People didn't care, and I've said this to you before, he created this, like, divisive character, following Trump, giving everyone loads, all this stuff.
And then they're going to cut him from the UFC.
And then people say, oh, you know what? I hate him. I want to see him get knocked out, but they're still watching. Do you know what I mean? You have to make people care about you.
I think going back on just for a second on the tennis player, where we come, well, I did anyway. My opinion was, yeah, if she's got anxiety and she's got mental health issues, then 100%, yeah, she needs that support. I just think though it can't get to the point where you can only accept good press. Yeah. There's got to be a point where if you're out there and you're getting the good money that comes from sponsorship, I'm not saying you've got to be able to take the bad press, but it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, if it's mental health, it's a bit, it's such a tricky one, I think, when people...
I think they could have handled it a lot better, you know, from the outside looking in, and they may well have done, but, you know, why didn't they have a conversation with her to go, okay, what media are you comfortable with? Let's handpick 2 or 3 to just come to the dressing room. And you know, that's down to our agents and management. Maybe they could have staged something like the UFC, who always give the microphone to these 3 outlets first. Why not just pick 2 or 3 select outlets and then say to everyone else what we're going to do is we're going to do it, but we'll just put it on the screen there on Zoom. And this is the situation. She's not too comfortable in this environment anymore, but this will help. We're going to tiptoe 100%. Herself back into it.
Definitely.
And the thing with tennis is, it's not like boxing where you've got to speak to media 3 times a year. It's not like tennis only exists, as you say, around Wimbledon or Queens or the US Open. The reason people bet on tennis so much is it's every week. It's like horse racing. The tennis tour is unbelievable. Like, the amount of pressure and the amount of games they play is ridiculous. When you look at it, they must play hundreds and hundreds of matches a year.
I don't think it stops, does it? There's like a week over Christmas, is it?
On that one, you know what's rife in tennis in the lower levels is match fixing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's rife.
There's no money at the bottom.
There's no money at the
bottom. You pay about 400 grand a year just to get on the tour, and then you make it about 200 quid.
Yeah,
you know,
it's rife in it. Yeah.
Just going, obviously, we've skipped a few things. Obviously, your journey. I was doing a bit of research, obviously, on you and stuff, and the BT Sport stuff you do. And there was a comment that said, bloody hell, Nick and Adam have come out of nowhere on BT Sport. And obviously you haven't come out of nowhere. You've been grafting away for many years.
If only, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if only it was out of nowhere.
Tom always has this thing, and he says it's like takes 20 years to become an overnight success.
It's true, mate.
Absolutely.
But I was chuckling away because obviously, like, you know, you're in the spotlight sort of in UFC now on BT Sport, big numbers, a lot of content, but, you know, people's mentality to think, you know, like BT Sport have just walked up and gone, do you like UFC?
Well, I just a random fan.
Exactly, yeah. I think more than anyone else, like Dan or Bisping or whatever, it's clear what they've done. And then even with Adam, he's such a polished presenter. I think people watch that and go, fuck me, he's a good presenter. I'm super biased, but I think he's the best sports presenter in the country.
Without doubt.
And I think people can watch that and go, okay, I can see why he's there. He's fucking good at what he does. And then I think people look at me and go, who the fuck is he? Don't know who he is. And he's just the super fan. Like, that's it. And people need to realise that's the role I've been cast as, the super fan. Yeah. But to be a super fan in that position took 20 almost 25 years of graft. You know, once I fell into journalism almost. I got a job at the Mersey Mart in Liverpool, a weekly newspaper, worked there for free for a year, then got a job at the Daily Post, worked there for, you know, I think my wages were £8,000 a year. That was my stat salary. So for the first 2 years of being a qualified journalist, I worked 9 to 5, went straight to Tesco's on Alton Road, stack shelves till 9 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday. And then on Saturday night, I worked the night shift right through, stacking the shelves right through. I did that for 2 years because I wanted to be a journalist, but there was no money in it.
Yeah.
And then I eventually got a full-time job with a bit more money. And then I jacked it and moved to Australia for the year, which was just like a lost year or whatever it was. And then I was coming back and was like, I need to go back, and rang the Echo and was like, anything going? And they said, actually, yeah, you know, you could definitely fit in with the team. Obviously, there's football stuff going on, but we know when you were in the weeklies and when you were on the Daily Post, you wrote a lot about boxing and we're desperate for the boxing writer. And I was like, that's the job for me. I'll be home in 3 weeks or whatever. So, you know, last little bit of surfing in Thailand and went on my money round. And then since then I did 10 years on the Echo as a football and boxing writer, and then eventually left there, moved to London, worked at Boxing News in London, and that was kind of like my dream job as a boxing journalist. But London's not my dream city. I just can't take to London at all, or the people, and I'd like going now for the day or something, but when I was living down there, I just hated it.
That 2 hour train's the best thing ever created.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Coming home on that train is not better. You've never been so happy to see Runcorn Station.
Like Stafford,
exactly. But so then I come back, and then I've done some work for a football agent for a little bit, and it was just, again, my relationship with football over the years has been weird, and that was another weird one because I got to see how much money was involved in the agency side of football. And basically a football agent had brought me in to start a boxing division, and you know, I was like, yeah, I can get X, Y and Z, and you know, I could get him a proper lineup at the time. But then when they crunched the numbers compared to what they can earn, a footballer can earn in terms of boot deals and advertising deals compared to boxing, and I'm talking, I had Olympians ready to sign, they were just like, that's never going to work for us. But in the meantime, I had a phone call from Fighters Only, which was like the world's biggest MMA magazine, and I was already a fan of the magazine. And they said, will you go to our Newcastle office just for a chat? And I thought, sound, a writing job, covering UFC full time. Boss, I've just done boxing, and I did boxing and UFC at the Echo. I focused on boxing at Boxing News. I thought, great, a couple of years covering UFC, that'll do me. And then I went to meet them in Newcastle, and they were like, yeah, this is our flagship office. It's not Vegas like we sell in the magazine, it's actually Newcastle. We have a satellite office in Vegas. And I was like, oh, even better. And they went, yeah, we're after an editor. And I was like, all right, sound. So I did the interview, I had a chat with them, got back in the car, phoned my dad as you do, and I'm like, after an editor's job, you know, mad dad, I didn't expect that one. And then I said to my dad, I'll have to ring you back, they're trying to ring me. And I answered the phone, they were like, listen, don't leave Newcastle, come back in, we want to offer you the job.
Wow.
So, you know, I got like a relocation package.
Now, what the fuck did you say at this interview?
Yeah, smashed it. Moved to Newcastle a couple of days later. Did 6 years up there. Spent a lot of time in Vegas, obviously. At the other office, a lot of time covering UFC. It was worth its weight in gold, and then it was only because I was getting married. I ran a fitness magazine then as well. They had the Fighters Only and a magazine called Train, which is still on the shelves now. So I edited both of them, and then came back to Liverpool and to start a family. And then obviously I met Adam at Radio City, because I just rang them and went, listen, I'm back in Liverpool now. I used to do a boxing show there with Peter McDowell, and I said, listen, I'm available if anyone wants to talk about boxing. And one night this producer just rang me out the blue and said, listen, we do a drive time show, there's a big fight this weekend, our DJ's into boxing, like, you know, it's a sports show, will you come in and have a chat with him? Will you do 10 minutes on the phone? And I went, no, fuck that. I said, I'll be there in 10. So I drove in, because I thought, if I drive in, he's got to give me at least half an hour.
I think for people listening, mate, who are thinking, I want to do this, but how do I do it? Even just little things like that. No, I'll come in and see you.
Yeah, I don't want to do 10 minutes on the phone, where the phone might go off, or you might have something else going on. I'll come in and do half an hour now. So anyway, I got in. I ended up doing half an hour with Adam, and then he was like, as soon as we finished the chat, he went, listen, can you come in every Thursday for half an hour, and we'll always do a boxing spot or whatever. So week 2, I'm in again, boom, another half hour. And then when we finished, then he went, listen, are you into podcasting? And I was like, yeah, of course, Joe Rogan. All that.
That's what everyone says.
Joe Rogan. Like, stick around for 10 minutes, let me wrap the show up, and let's go and get a beer. Me, you and Mike, who was our producer and still is. And we went to Iguanas in Liverpool 1. ordered a bucket of beers. And by the time we got to the bottom of the bucket of beers, we'd come up with the name Fight Disciples. We knew we wanted to do a boxing show and a UFC show because no one else was doing both.
Yeah.
And we believe, and I still believe, that the crossover of fans is massive. If you look people getting knocked out, it doesn't matter whether they're in the ring or the octagon, you like people getting knocked out. So, and that was it. That was 5.5 years ago.
That's a proper amazing story of just a lad who likes, you know, sport, likes boxing, you know, likes journalism, and it just seems like, not saying that you never had an end goal, but it just seems, you know, by having your passion and, you know, kind of,
I didn't have an end goal, and I still don't. It drives my wife mad, because she's a planner, she's a saver, and, you know, in 2 years' time, if we can take the kids to Disney World, and I'm like, don't talk to me about 2 years' time.
When are you booking?
I'm like that, book it now, let's just go now. So we haven't got the money now, we'll find it, just book it now.
I'm the exact same, but like the whole world now is so stringent, isn't it? It's like, you know, you got to me 5-year plan this and me 10-year plan that. Like, plan for wake up tomorrow and deal with everything that comes.
I just kind of, there was this point there, so I was working at the Echo in about 94, and I got a phone call. I was covering boxing for them, obviously. I was doing footy still, Liverpool and Everton, whoever's. The way it worked is I was the full-time boxing editor eventually, but my day job was planning the paper. I was first in at the Echo every morning, 6 in the morning, and I'd get the plan out and go, right, Liverpool stories going on the back, Everton stories going there, we've got a page of cricket, we have a page here, I'll have a page of boxing. You know, making sure. That's why the boxing coverage was always good when I was there. And that was like my day job, if you like, planning it and designing the newspaper. And then I was the boxing reporter on top of that, and then on top of that I was the home football reporter. So whoever was at home on a Saturday, I'd go. So if I'd be at Anfield doing the player ratings, doing the post-match manager interview, and I would do the colour piece. And then the following week I'd be at Goodison doing exactly the same thing. And for a few years I was like, I loved it. Because I'm like a mad Liverpool fan. I grew up like every Liverpool lad. Grew up playing football, played at a decent level. My dad played at a good level, like, you know, 40 mad. But there's a story about why I fell in love with boxing. But then all that time I spent covering football, being at Anfield especially. Goodison not so much because I didn't have that affinity, but spending a lot of time at Anfield, at Melwood, around the players, around the staff, the senior staff, I just started to resent the football club and what these people stood for wearing my football shirt, you know what I mean? Because I'd have walked through brick walls to play for that football team just to play 10 minutes. Like everyone, you dream of being a kid going, imagine just going on for 1 minute, like going right through Duncan Ferguson, taking them out the game and getting sent off, but going, that's my minute. Never playing football again, but being able to walk around going, that was my minute. You know what I mean? That was kind of my thing. And then you get to realise that Mascherano doesn't care. Harry Kewell couldn't give a fuck. Glenn Johnson doesn't care. You know, Daniel Sturridge doesn't care. And these are first team regulars, and he just didn't care. And I spent 10 years sitting in the press box at Liverpool and Everton, and by the end of it, football, and I think that pushed me more than ever towards my true passion, which was always boxing. I fell in love with boxing as a kid, and I just thought, you know what, I'm standing in the dugout, I've got players walking towards me, all them players have just listed and more, and I'm standing there like, can I get a quick quote? And they're pretending to be on their phones, they're not even looking at you, they're not even going, sorry mate, I'm just walking straight past you. And I just thought, who the fuck are you to walk past me? And then on the way home I'd be in the car and I'd have a missed call off Ricky Hatton, and I just thought, what, fuck this.
100%.
Mate, you know what I've noticed? I've been lucky enough to do some, again, same as you mate, same story, massive footy fan, played at an alright level, and been lucky enough to work now within some football clubs, work with Man City, with Liverpool, with England. And what I've noticed in staff who work at these clubs, the closer you get to the inner circle of football, the more you fall out of love with football. You know, fans who, I won't mention his name, but a guy who used to work for Liverpool, you know, massive fan, and you'd see it drain out of him because he's working there and he's seeing what, like, exactly what you've said, what these people are like. And you could see he wasn't as emotionally invested as maybe I was, who didn't see it day in, day out. And then as I got to work a little bit more with them, and I was thinking, why the fuck am I this arsed about this when the people who were doing it, working for them, aren't even that arsed?
No.
And I've seen it, mate, in every walk of football life. The closer you are to that inner circle and the inner workings, the more you fall out of love with it.
Since I got back to Liverpool 5-6 years ago, moving back full time and all that, got my season ticket back off my uncle, you know, now I'm a season ticket holder on the car. I feel I could go to a match, I can't. The day before, I'm excited.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same circle of lads. There's 5 of us. We go in a car. You know, we have a different designated driver every game.
Yeah.
That's the worst game. So then the fixtures.
Not at your own, like that.
Just make sure I'm not designated on the Champions League. But yeah, I absolutely love it. You know, we have a routine. We go here, we go there. We have a few beers before the game, a quick beer on the way home after the game. On the terraces, just loving it. I don't know any of the players personally.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone at the staff.
You can enjoy it again.
And I just love it again now. I can be a fan again. So I'm in love with football again. But yeah, there was a time there where
I can totally see it, mate. Yeah.
Easily.
Just like in terms of combat athletes and like other sports and other sports people, there's not quite. I don't think this might be biased, but there's a sport where the athletes are as open as combat sports in terms of like in building a relationship with like, you know, media or just people in general, because a lot of it feels like they are just your mate having a fight, you know what I mean? And
because 99.9% of fighters are working class lads, and they've had no media training, and at no point have they gone to an academy aged 8 and then been kept away from this and told how to behave and sit on a bus with 30 other lads and, you know, don't be too loud, be quiet, do this, and then obviously get to a certain level. You know, look at Liverpool over the last few years. Other than Carragher and Gerrard, you know, what personalities? Michael Owen, what nice lad and all that, but you know, in when he did interviews when he was a player, certainly just wouldn't. No, and you just think that's why Carragher's been so successful. Because he's never lost his identity. He's always been sound. Yeah. That's why there was certain players. Listen, for all the bad ones, there was Lucas Leiva. Like, I will never hear the bad word said against that man, because I worked that press box, and every single game, win, lose or draw, whether he played or not, he would walk up to the media and go, does anybody need anything? Every single game. And there was Phil Neville at Everton doing the same thing, and obviously Carragher was great, and you know, there were certain players who were brilliant, but the difference is
it's minority and majority, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember a single, obviously I've had times where I fell out with fighters, but I can't remember a single fighter who's ever gone like, oh, I'm not doing media, I'm not interested in doing an interview.
It doesn't have that like elitist thing, doesn't it? Because in football it's like, I'm the player, do you know what I mean? If you want to talk to me, I'll tell you when to talk.
Well, to be devil's advocate though for a minute, and I know you're both passions of boxing, would someone then just say, well, they're only doing that though because if they don't, they're not going to get paid properly? Whereas in a football sense,
the sport's obviously not anywhere near the level.
Don't sell a season tickets, do they? The team does, the club does, so they know it's going to be a full house on Saturday. They know that, and maybe they're told, don't concern yourself with the media too much because just focus on this. Whereas obviously in fight sports, no matter how big you are, you've got to do media because it's not the #1 sport in the country. You know, it is battling against other sports. It is being competitive. So that's why they've got to do a lot of media. They've got to sell tickets. They've got to put bums on seats. They've got to make sure that people, as you say, care about them as individuals. Now, that then takes you down 2 paths, really. Either one, where you've just got to teach yourself to be good at it. Or 2, if you're really good at media, then you can create a persona which protects yourself, but allows you to be larger than life. Now, the obvious one from Liverpool is Tony Bellew. Now, I grew up with Anthony Bellew. He was a couple of years younger than me in school. His brother was in my class. I've known him and his family my entire life. I've always known him as Anthony, certainly from the amateurs. He was always Anthony to me. But then when he became a professional, he became Tony Bomber Bellew, and he's a different person. And I used to always, obviously I loved it because he was full of sound bites and everything, but I remember being in this city and people would go, Bellew's a dickhead.
I was one of them, mate.
Mad, isn't it?
And like I say, I speak to him now on social media and stuff. He's obviously going to come on next few weeks, but I remember that press conference, can't remember who he was fighting.
Cleverly.
And he's going, lad, you're a rat, you're a rat. And I was thinking, mate, you're giving Scousers a bad name, you look like a fucking idiot, man, why are you acting like this?
Yeah.
And then you realise...
Say that to me all the time.
Yeah. I hated him when I was younger.
You only have to see the Bellew and Hay relationship now. You know, IFL or Matchroom was something to put up, the hugging and because they made each other a load of dough. But the thing is, you know, when he's kicking the Toblerone at him or he's calling him SpongeBob SquarePants or whatever he called him like that, you know, you've got people don't understand, and you never want them to understand because then the magic goes, doesn't it?
Of course.
But like,
and that's, to be honest, the Scouts thing is a big thing as well, because that's the way we're brought up in it. You know, you're brought up working class, you're brought up to respect everyone, you're brought up, you know, not to give Scousers a bad name, because we know in the 80s the city and its people were dragged through the mud. you know, we've always been us against the world anyway. That's just the mentality of a Scouser. That's why we live in a principality, or we like to think we do. So when we see one of us acting out or behaving daft, you think it reflects on all of us. So and I'm trying to spoke to many Scouse fighters over the years and go, get over it. You've got to get over that, because at the end of the day, this city alone can't get you to where you want to be. This city obviously can provide the foundations, the training, the Everton Hills to get your lungs going, everything else. But to become a superstar, to become a success, you've got to become... People outside of this city have got to care about you.
They've got to love you or hate you.
That's what Bellew did. Most of the people in the country hated him. They hated Bomber Bellew, and it drove me mad, because I was playing five-a-side with him, and I, you know, spent time with his family, and I'm going to his house in Old Swan when he had a little, you know, a little terraced house that he was renting, and he had babies on the floor and all that, and nicest fella in the world. Next day he's on a presser going, I'm Tony Bellew. But he got it. And now after 2 decades of covering boxing for this city, all the fighters from this city, knowing them from novice ABA champion to now a flood of retirement. Stephen Smith retired this week. I covered Stephen in his novice ABAs, right through his ABA championships, Commonwealth Games, all his amateur, incredible amateur, professional, couple of world title fights. Now he's retiring. I covered the whole spectrum, and yet Bellew was one of 3, maybe 4 that have achieved the dream. Not just winning a world title, but winning the world title and got a bank balance. That means they ain't never got to work again.
And that's a huge problem in boxing.
And that's the big problem, because Shane Neary, you know, Andy Olligan, you know, Colin Dunn, Peter Culshaw, these were all world champions when I first got into the game, that were on ITV every other weekend, normal TV, big numbers for ITV. Most of them now are driving taxis, or, you know, I know Shay's coaching his lad JJ or whatever else, but there's no money there. There's no, you know, they've given up a huge portion and sacrificed so much in their lives to become a world champion boxer, and now you've got very little to show for it. It's a tough old game.
It's only now when I look back, and I think Bellew, like he knew the game and he played it well. Do you know what I mean? Whereas me as a young kid looking at it, again with that Scouse hat on, thinking, what are you doing? It's only, again, you realise, fair play to him.
Paddy gets it as well.
Absolutely nailed it.
No, Paddy Pimblett, obviously, he gets it as well, because it's the, you know, in order to get out of boxing as a success, obviously the belts and all that, they do matter, but you've got to get out with something to show for it, in terms of your housing or your family secure, or, you know, it's easy for us to sit and talk about it, but, you know, if you do it like, I don't know, 12-year career, and you get out and you go, right, I've got to go and get a job, you've risked a lot. You've risked a hell of a lot in your health and stuff in order to get out like that. So Paddy gets that perfectly, I think, in terms of people will buy Paddy's fights because they want to A, see him get knocked out, or B, they want to see him win. But everyone's still paying.
I think, you know what would be even more difficult, and I'm fascinated every time I speak to boxers about it, is your ego. If you've been a world champion, or even just boxed at a decent level, you know, you've got this persona about you, and then for one reason or another you've not got that bank balance, and then you have to go and work in Tesco's or go on a taxis. I think that would be so hard. To I mean, we spoke about it a bit. Back.
Because you can't let go of that beast, can they? Do you know what I mean? In terms of, like, I've still got it.
Well, how many people must get in, you know, Paul Hodgkinson's taxi and go, Paul, WBC world champion, you know, oh my God, I was at your fights and blah blah, and they're probably thinking, you know, it must be amazing for him being recognised. But I bet you somewhere inside there's a bit of,
I was
boxing at me up and shit me out, like it does for everyone else, and that's why, to be honest, it's part of my fascination. You know, it goes back to, again, it was all football for me. When I was a kid, my dad took me to amateur boxing, and my cousin boxed for Golden Star ABC over in Ellesmere Port, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So I was around boxing because my dad was a fan, even though he was a footy fella. And then 93, was it 94? My only time, took me to Castle Grayskull to see my Ben versus Eubank at Old Trafford, and the only time I've ever been. And weirdly, that fight, I think, had such an impact on me as a teenager, because I just kind of come away from it like physically drained because of this yo-yo fight that they'd had, and it was eventually scored a draw. And I think somewhere inside that changed a lot for me, because I was going to Anfield, I was seeing football at the highest level, Liverpool winning league titles and doubles, but there was a thing about it being a team and everyone coming together and like, oh well, if we get beat, don't worry. Like, oh, don't worry, son. We're playing again next week. We've got the FA Cup final.
It wasn't your fault.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So there was an element of like, oh, sound okay, no problem. That's football. Brush yourself down. Got into the game this week. Whereas at that boxing match, I was thinking, these two fellas are not only putting their lives on the line, they're putting their reputations, their world titles, like everything. They don't get to fight again next week. They may never get to fight again ever if they get injured. And to have that level of jeopardy in sport on that level, Old Trafford's packed, by the way. Like, there's not every standing only, rammed. Everyone's going ballistic, and I just thought, this is different gravy for me. This is different. This is not football. This is nothing I've seen before. This is boxing at the highest level. That's
my obsession with it as well. I think I've said this to you plenty of times, but the reason I love boxing and MMA is because I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
I know I could not do that. Like I've said to people, like football and stuff, I could play, I could get by, but I know I physically couldn't get into that octagon or get into that ring and perform.
Yeah.
And like to have that in your mind, to think them guys, girls now, which is, you know, women's MMA especially, is flying. They're just a different breed.
I think there's obviously, to make it in the highest level of sports or make it in the highest level of business, you've got to be able to control your anxiety and control the butterflies in your stomach. And John Jones in the UFC famously said, I don't control the butterflies in my stomach, I just get them to fly in formation. So he's accepting the fact, yeah man, I get nervous, but I'm controlling the nerves, I'm controlling that energy. And that's the key for me. Like, over the years, I've seen so many good boxers in the gym, so many good lads, and you think, fuck me, this guy's going to be a world champion. And then you get out there in front of the bright lights, in front of a couple of hundred people, and it just doesn't happen for them because they just can't handle that moment. So when you start now talking about the likes of Conor McGregor or Anthony Joshua, the amount of eyeballs that are on them, the pressure, the business that's built on their success, the amount of people in the dressing room, everything else, for them to be able to block it out, for them to be able to go, that's just a fight, this is what I love to do, to be able to have that in that moment. Like, I'm like you, I see Jordan Henderson do it for Liverpool or for England, and I revere it, and I go, oh, I love him to bits. And I've been on a journey with Jordan, but I love him to bits now. But in the back of my mind, I go, if I'd not went round the back of the bike sheds to smoke a bit of weed, if I've not worked out what my dick was for and went chasing girls in the disco, if I'd not done this and not done that, I could have been a pro foot, you know, in the back of your mind, I could have been a footy player,
It's obtainable, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean?
I could have done that. I could have played at Anfield. I have played at Anfield. I've scored at Anfield. But I could have done it as a pro. But then I look at boxing, and I look at, I'm in Las Vegas, I'm sitting ringside, commentating for the BBC maybe, Conor McGregor's walking into the octagon, Khabib's walking in to face him.
Fuck that.
It's like a bear. It's like a bear pit. My hands are trembling, I'm holding the microphone, my palms are sweating, my heart's beating out my chest. And I'm like, and I'm just talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
How the fuck have you been able to walk? I couldn't stand up now. My legs have gone to jelly. And they're two guys who are obviously doing it at the highest level. I'll come back to Bellew again because there's a personal relationship there. When he walked out at Goodison Park, I was gone. I was absolutely drained because I know where he's been, I know where he's going, but I also know you lose now, this is your life forever. You will forever be known as the guy that brought boxing to Goodison Park for the first time in 50, 60 years. You said you were going to world title, it got delivered for you on a fucking bank holiday. We're all here.
It's awesome.
And he gets dropped. He gets dropped and does a backwards roll, and honestly I just felt sick and was like,
I've never heard a place go as quiet as that.
Oh my God. You just think you're gonna, so to have the mentality to overcome that, to have the mentality just to walk to that ring, I couldn't do it.
No.
And that's why I'm obsessed with fight sports, because I'm obsessed with the DNA that's in these people.
Yeah, it's mad, I think, as well, in certain people, and they have very few and far between, you know, Bellew being one, McGregor being one.
You must have seen it in the services though, in the military. There must be people like that in the military, surely.
Yeah, there are, with those mindsets, 100%. They tend to go on to, one of my best mates is actually in Special Forces, got that mindset of just, you know, always for the next challenge, the bigger thing, and he has got that unbelievable character and strength of mind. But I just think there's so few and far between to have those people. It's like we're, and it's doing them a disservice by saying this, but it's like, you know, they can fall in a snake pit and come out wearing snakeskin shoes. It's like, you know, that moment, like, you know, the Steven Gerrard moments, you know, he's got that many of them, you know, the McGregor, the Bellew, good. There's certain people, isn't there, that when the pressure's on, the response, everything, they just deliver.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating now, like the Ronaldos, that everyone's doubting it. You're saying about like Joshua and stuff, and these people now, McGregor, they're a business in themselves, and it's like if they fuck up a couple of times, people are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Like even that for the pressure.
You can't have a bad day. Your bad day, you're getting rendered unconscious. Do you imagine having that pressure on you to think like like on our worst day, you know, you let your emails run over a bit and you pick it back up tomorrow. You know, it's just Adesanya's brilliant at it. Like I think because he's at the top of the UFC, the middleweight division, but he'll like dance to the ring and he'll put on a show.
Yeah.
I think having that presence of mind and having the ability to think, right, you're still selling yourself and you're going for a fight with with a trained ninja. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different world.
I tell a story, Nick. I think I said it to Luke on the last podcast we done, but I was in the rotunda on the pads with Mikey, and again, I'm not fucking a fighter, do you know what I mean? But I'm feeling like he's on the pads making me look like, you know what I mean?
Oh, come on. And you're like, yeah!
You come in saying Jake Paul's next.
I walk back in the change, you're just thinking, fucking hell, mad as fuck, me. And Callum Smith's sitting there. It's just like Callum's like, right hands? Like,
yeah, God. Taking the wrapped up, yeah. I'm just going to use the toilet.
I was like, I hope he didn't see me. But, you know. But yeah, levels, man.
I was at Calbon yesterday, and which is Darren Till's gym, and last week Callum was in there. Darren Till and Callum did 10
Yeah,
threes.
seen that actually, yeah.
They did 10 threes, yeah. And seen a bit of footage, like, quality, but yeah, again, like imagine walking out to face Canelo in front of like 50 odd pounds.
And then people say, fucking hell, you froze there. You say, do you know what?
Yeah.
Fucking give me it. Like, and to be fair, Callum, you know, going back to the character and thing, Callum is a very quiet, you know, sort of a guy who doesn't say much unless he needs to. But that must burn on you. When you go into the top of the tree and you're fighting the best fighter, he might even, you know, I know he got done for juicing, but he's a brilliant fighter. To go in there and then to someone to say, oh, why didn't you do this? That must fuck.
That's the problem, yeah. I think because they only fight a couple of times a year as well. Yeah, I know Pricey used to get that a lot as well. Pricey be walking around the city and he went, any fella under 5'5" would always try it on. You think Pricey's 6'8", 6'9", like who are these mental little scousers that think they can knock out it? Yeah. And they go like, you didn't even do such and such. And you think, mate, you medalled in the Olympic Games. Won the British Commonwealth, fought for the European. Like, what more? The only thing Pricey didn't do was win a world title. And you know what? In this era, is that such a bad thing? Look at the levels he got to.
I got carted out to a party for this argument. I had an actual argument with someone in the back. He was saying Pricey's chinny and stuff, and I'd had a few beers at this point, and he said he was only British champion. I said, are you fucking mad? Do you know how hard that is? Like there's lads who've, like for example, Tom Stoker, an amazing amateur, couldn't reach British level, and he was one of the best amateurs the country's ever produced.
Spoken about so much.
Do you know, you're captain of the Olympic team, and I hate that phrase of he only did that. So he'd chin you. Does me head.
But again, it's fight sports, and you know, reaching that 5%. Who actually earn the kind of money that everyone dreams of having, that kind of money. To be part of that 5% is such a minuscule fraction of people who actually pick up a pair of gloves for the first time. That to get to Central Area title is an achievement. 100%. You know, never mind fighting for a world
Everyone's
title.
ceiling's different, but as I say, to get out, you know, journeyman, I don't like calling them that, but they fascinate me as well in terms of doing that for a living is just, you know, again, cut from a different cloth.
It's a different sport to them though.
Yeah, it is,
I've spoke to a lot of journeymen, and journeymen are often the best interviews. You know, I spoke to a lad the other week who'd had 120 fights and won about 12. And I've never met someone who loved boxing as much as him. Just the most enthusiastic kid in the world. I love it. Fight every day if I could and blah blah. And I'm like, you know, you're only in your mid-20s, if you like, and he has to work full time. He just supplements his income by doing that. And
that's a mad mindset to have that.
So he'll fight every Saturday, and then he'll work during the week. And obviously after work, he'll go training and all that. He'll do his runs. He'll watch his weight. But he's always there by the phone. Bump, sound, I'll get on the train now. You know, I know fellas who've been at family parties, like one Guinness in, phone goes, we've been let down, can you get to Manchester? Sound, let's go. You know, and jump on a train to Manchester with their coach and do 4 rounds against the former Olympic, you know, some young Olympic superstar, but last 4 rounds, survive 4 rounds, go, sound, okay, get me wages, see you later. that's just the world they live in. And
There's a famous journeyman, Johnny. I forget his second name, and that's terrible of me. But I'll get it up. But he said people in the pub used to say, "You're crap, you." He's a famous British journeyman.
They made a documentary about him, Johnny Rowe. He made it. I think it was Johnny Rowe. They made a documentary about him, which is really quite sad. As he committed suicide and that. But yeah, there was a lad from Birmingham called Peter Buckley. Yeah. Who had well over 300, might have been 350 fights. Fought everyone, Naz, you name it. Fought everyone on the way up, and then retired after these hundreds of fights. And I remember reading interviews with him at the time and stuff, and he was like, well, I've paid the mortgage off on my house. I've got a double glazing business. I've got a couple of window cleaning round businesses. I've got a painting and decorating business. So all the time you get the money and go, right, I'll buy that business now. But people would run it for, I'll buy that little business now. And and he loved boxing. So why not? And he could handle himself. Tell you what, he could protect himself. Yeah. But I guess it's a sport where now CTE especially is coming so prominent in contact sports, and it will become even more prominent in fight sports as we move forward. I know the UFC are collecting a shitload of data at the moment on CTE. Because they're getting ready, you see, because the NFL got sued to bollocks by all these ex-players. So I think they're putting data together to work out whether the annual MRA scan is enough, whether the post-fight, pre-fight checks are enough. They're trying to make sure these fighters are in the best possible condition, because I'm reading Tristics at the moment, Damage, speaking to a lot of ex-fighters, and the chapter starts where he goes to see Harold Bomber Graham, and he's in a institute down in London, and serious mental health issues and stuff, and you think that would kill me if it was a fighter I knew, someone from Liverpool who had covered, who is now in an institute because of the trauma they take into the brain. So I'm all for, let's make it as safe as possible, but then at the end of the day, it's free will, man. We're all adults.
I think I've read the book, and it was, I think it's a necessary read for anyone who claims they love boxing, they work in boxing or anything like that.
Fighters,
because it's fighting, because they gotta, it's no good being blasé to it or pretending it doesn't happen. But as Nick was saying before, the 5% that gets out, that percent's got to start going up. Do you know what I mean? I know sort of this stuff with Eddie getting more money with the zone, and
what is in the percentage got to go up?
Of people who get out with enough money. Do you know what I mean? It can't be like 5%. If it even is, that is very, very, very small. Do you know what I mean? For the risk reward ratio that we're talking about. Harold Bomber Graham, people who've won world titles, and they end up in institutes, or God forbid they take their own lives, or some have even sort of in the book, I'm sure you've touched on it, committed murder and stuff like that, and then the brain's been studied after death, and the brain was in a bad way. We all love it, but on a serious side of it, it's gotta, we all gotta find a way.
On the money side of things, one thing that always frustrated me, I know Callum got his thing with the world, the Super Series, and also the Canelo fight, but one thing that I know Callum to say hello to, don't know him really well, but just such a nice lad, and it frustrates me when you see these YouTubers now coming on, which is a whole different argument. But where do you sit with, again, it's a little bit like what we touched on with Bell, you playing the game, but how frustrating is it when you've got a fighter who is extremely, has got the potential to go to the levels, yet he might just be quiet, or he hasn't got that charisma, or he hasn't got. And then there's someone else who's just gobbing off and this and that, and you feel like going, the world, this society is fucked, because the best aren't getting to the top because he doesn't like gobbing off.
And that's just, unfortunately, that's just the way the sport's built, because it is a minority sport. I live and breathe it every single day, both boxing and MMA, but they are niche sports. Sometimes I have to remember that I'm in a goldfish bowl in some regards. I can come out of an interview and be like, oh my God, I've just got a great interview with Adesanya, the world's going to explode when they hear what he's just said here. And I'll put it on social media, and I might get 500 likes off 500 diehard MMA fans. And then, James Milner's put some post up about drinking my beer, and he's got about 50 million likes, including me. And I'm just like, it's fucked up, what's going on? Yeah. But that's just the way it is. And unfortunately, I've known plenty of fighters over the years with a lot of ability, but I haven't been able to talk. I haven't had the gift of the gab, and you may as well sit them down early on and go, doesn't matter how much you love it, doesn't matter how much you want it, you're never going to make it.
Athletic potential and earning potential are two separate entities, aren't they?
It's so important in fight sports, so important. In football, of course, it doesn't matter. the end of the day, there's a bubble around you to protect you from that stuff. As long as you do it on the pitch, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I think other sports are like that, but kind of like in tennis, that girl's got to number 2 in the world, and now she's starting to push back on wanting to do interviews. So wait a minute. Part of the reason you got to number 2 in the world in a weird way is the fact that you were face in front of camera, so the sponsors went, put a logo on a lapel. You only got that because you were winning tournaments. Well, it all kind of ties in with itself.
It's funny, isn't it? Like Jesse Lingard's getting stick off Roy Keane because he's doing dances and things like that, and it's getting told, stop doing that and play football. Where boxing, it's like, come on, what are you doing out the ring as well? I want to see more of you.
Exactly.
No one wants to see, and I've said this to a couple of lads that I know who box. Like, yeah, you get likes, but no one wants to see you hitting the bag 4 times a day. Do you know what I mean? They want to know about you. They want to know about what's going on with you. How can you, like, say, even funny stories? Just bumped into this fella today. Luca Willis was a perfect example. Works on the car park, and he had that funny story about putting his wraps on, and he put his wraps on before he, like, towards the end of his shift, and then he'd run to. That's funny, and people connect with that. And the comments we got were all about, like, the funny side of it.
Of course.
And mate, the other week when we just texting one evening, and he just sent me like a highlight reel of like Conor McGregor. I just sat there for 20 minutes crying, laughing. Everything from like him riding that bike, going na 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 na, like just silly things that you just think is different. Either he does me head and I want to see him battered, or I can't wait to see him fight again. It is that thing, isn't it?
McGregor's not the most talented mixed martial artist, and he never has been on the planet, but he's the highest earning.
Funny, we had this conversation yesterday at the gym, and we were saying that, if you were going to do a top 10 list in MMA of the greatest of all time in terms of their ability inside the octagon, then Conor probably wouldn't make the top 10.
No.
Really?
Yeah, but when you talk about achievements, impact on the sport, pop culture, all the other stuff that goes with it, then you'd argue Conor's miles above everybody else. No one's ever earned the money he's earned. No one's ever brought the eyeballs he's done to the sport. He's the biggest thing the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen, and maybe ever will see. And that's surpassing Ronda Rousey, George St. Pierre, John Jones, Brock Lesnar. These were all superstars, but none of them.
I'll be honest, mate. I'm not like Jordan is, and clearly not like yourself. I am like a fair weather UFC fan, and it was McGregor who brought me to the sport and made me just.
There'd be millions in the same bracket.
Of course.
And I'm far more invested now, but without doubt, 100% wanted to watch everything Conor was posting.
Look at the people who changed the lives off the back of him, though. Nate Diaz was obviously a lifelong jiu-jitsu guy and stuff like that, but his interview where he said, McGregor, you're taking everything I've worked for, then changed his career because he got the fights, and now he's legendary.
The Scrap Pack team, him and his brother and a couple of others, they were the Scrap Pack. They were notorious in MMA for being the bad boys and all that kind of stuff. But you're absolutely right, he was always Nick's little brother. He won tough, but he was Nick's little brother, Nate. And then this whole thing with Conor just took Nate to a whole different level. And now, look at the other week, he gets battered for 4 rounds and 4 minutes of the fight, and then almost stops Leon Edwards in the last minute. And in the aftermath, no one's talking about the fact he got battered for 95% of that fight. All anyone's talking about is, Nate almost got him. Nate's a bad boy.
When's Nate back?
Like Conor. Nate should do this. And Paul Leon's like, shit.
Usman's talking about them fighting him now, isn't he? Like, and as we touched on it on the sportcast, but everyone after that fight weren't talking about Leon being this unbelievably rounded mixed martial artist, and as you say, being the second best welterweight on the planet and stuff like that. They're saying, look at Nate's cuts, he's fucking hard.
That's why fight sports is messed up, obviously, in a lot of ways. But then, there's 2 ways to look at it, because obviously the UFC as a model works because basically it's fucking Dana White at the top. He's the puppet master going, right, sound. You want to see him versus him? I'll do him versus him. You want to see that guy? Right, sound. Let's have a look at the rankings. Fuck the rankings. That makes more money against him. And the reason it makes more money is because the fans want to see it. So Nate Diaz may well get that fight, because we ask 90% of fans, and they're going to go, I'd rather see Nate Diaz fight him, because I want to see that whole pantomime that goes with it. Whereas in boxing, we have a ranking system within 4 or 5 different governing bodies, and those governing bodies have their own financial agenda, and the one governing body doesn't rank the other governing body's champion. So that's what makes it almost impossible to get these unification fights. Like and that's fundamentally the issue with boxing. That's why this year on the podcast we did a Ranger t-shirt. In fact, I might even have one on. We did a whole Win the Belts campaign to.
You were saying
I've got one. Yeah,
that would be the best thing that could happen to boxing, is just get rid of all these governing bodies, because each one takes a percentage of the purse off both fighters.
Yeah, when Jordan told me that, I couldn't believe
Sanctioning
that.
fees, mate. People
Yeah.
have got
Sanctioning
serious
fees.
beach houses on the back of sanctioning fees.
When-
I'm telling you.
Well, let's just hope it happens. When AJ and Fury eventually happens, 2025 or whatever it'll be, when that eventually happens, and we got and the big story is 150 million kitty, blah 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 blah. About 6-7% of that will go to the sanctioned bodies, maybe more, maybe 10%.
Fucking ridiculous.
Just old men who live in Puerto Rico who have got a little blazer on, who are going, yeah, we'll sanction that. So let's say Eddie Hearn wants to do a WBC silver belt or whatever. He has to pay his yearly fee to the WBC of a couple of grand just to be part of, promoter that works with the WBC. Then he goes to them and goes, right, I want to do a WBC silver title fight. And they go, sound, okay, well, that's going to cost you for that as well, and then you've got to pay for the belt, and then we'll tell you what the officials are, so you've got to pay for them as well, and it is absolutely
Sickening.
extortionate.
That's absurd, that
We
is.
talk about fighters not getting what they deserve, and yet these governing bodies are rolling in tens of millions of dollars year after year after year after year, and the argument is, but fans want title fights. TV companies want title fights. You can't do a show live on Sky Sports without there being a title fight at the end. You fucking can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
Just match the number 2 guy with the number 3 guy and go, whoever wins this fight's the champ.
Yeah.
You're all happy?
Just have one big massive leaderboard,
Exactly.
and it's just right, yeah, 1 versus 2.
Which is exactly what the UFC does.
Yeah.
So this was the beauty of basically building a sport 25 years ago.
yeah.
When you're a massive boxing fan and you're into martial arts and whatever else, and you think, let's make Ultimate Fighting Championship, blah blah. And they did buy it. It was already up and running. But when they bought it, they went, right, unified rules. Let's get this shit on TV. Let's get a ranking system. Let's make it nice and clear, like a pyramid for fans, so it's dead easy to follow. 11 weight divisions, 11 champions. That's it. And the only time they have an interim belt now is if, say, the champion gets a serious injury and be out for 18 months. Okay, we're not going to strip you. Let's have an interim. As soon as you're fit, no warm up, no you fight the winner of that belt, and then we sling the interim in the bin. That's how it works. And I think that would bring so many more eyeballs to the sport of boxing.
I'll be honest again, because I'm not a proper enthusiast into the boxing. I don't understand the difference, because I don't understand one belt's got a bit more respect on it than others, like the WBO or WBO, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know all of that.
Well, the governing bodies just come along. I think the WBC, IBF, WBO, WBA, they're like the ones that people class as the main belts, but they've sort of come along incrementally as well.
Yeah.
But
That's what I mean. I think not maybe most, but I think the fair weather boxing fan doesn't know that's got a bit more.
That's why UFC, and I'd love to get your views on this, Nick. That is why, in my opinion, MMA and UFC, you can probably include Bellator and PFL and stuff in that as well. That is why they're catching up with boxing, because it's simplified. People sit and watch it and they go, who's the champion of the welterweight division? Kamaru Usman. Okay, who's he going to fight next? Yeah, there's the top 5. Be one of them. Do you know what I mean? You say, who's Joshua going to fight next? Fury, but he's got that sort of mandatory with Usyk. He might have to fight Luis Ortiz. Kubrat Pulev's waiting for a fight. It's too. And people say to me all the time, like, who's the champion of that division? You go, how long you got?
Exactly. Josh Hill at the moment, the unified champion of his weight division, super lightweight. I would love him to just get all 4 belts and a fucking big welding mask and just go weld them all together and just go, right, that's it now.
Yeah.
All the governing bodies can fuck off. I've got all the belts. Whoever fights me, take
Wins.
the belts. And I promise you, I'll always fight the number 1 contender. And take control of the sport. Someone's got to do it. We try and get Eddie to do it all the time. Eddie's the biggest promoter in the world now. And he's been incredible for British boxing. Absolutely incredible. And I think it's really bold that he's leaving Sky and going to DAZN, a streaming channel. But if you ever wanted more of a statement in terms of how television is going, then that is it. If you think this is where it's going to end, you're kidding yourself, We'll all have Premier League channel soon. And there won't be any Sky or BT or any of that. Premier League will go, wait a minute, we can charge everyone on the planet a tenner and you get to watch every Premier League. Sound, let's just do that and make even more money. That's ultimately where it's going. All sport will go the same way. But in regards to the belts, you say to Eddie all the time, you're at the forefront now. You could just say, right, Matchroom, with our partner DAZN, we are not going to work with any other governing belt body except maybe WBO or Ring Magazine, even better, the Ring Magazine belt. Ring Magazine belt is only presented by the boxing magazine Ring, to two fighters who are the number 1 and number 2 in the world. Whenever they fight, Ring Magazine will go, okay, well that's for the number 1 spot now, officially. We'll throw a Ring Magazine belt at it. So you don't get them that often. But obviously, when you get, because they're impartial, supposedly impartial, because they're working off an independent ranking system, you'd like to think more often than not that's the right 2 people to prove who is the best in that weight division. That's the one that stands up. Get rid of all the rest of them.
Yeah,
WBC are the oldest. They were the first world governing body, and they brought in the 10-9 scoring system that boxing uses today. In fact, MMA uses it as well. It was brought in by the WBC, and then the others all came on afterwards. The WBO came in our lifetime.
Yeah.
WBO came in the 80s. But those 4 belts are the 4 belts that you can truthfully claim to be a world champion. The problem is, the WBA have the WBA World Champion, the WBA Super World Champion, the WBA Global Champion, the WBA Intercontinental Champion, the WBA International Champion.
That's just like, I want to make some more. How can we fucking make as much money?
That is as simple as it is. That is exactly
Everyone can see it. This is what's wrong with boxing. Everyone can see it. Now, the other issue with boxing, because before you tee me up about is UFC taking over in MMA, the other issue with boxing is we've all been to a live boxing show. You go to a live boxing show, there's 10 fights on. If you see 2 competitive fights, you've done well. And I've been going to boxing shows 30 years. If you get to see 2 fights that are actually competitive, you've cracked it. You've had a good night. Because most of it is 7 or 8 fights where you go, right, well, that kid's going to win. And that Latvian kid over there with the fat belly, he's clearly not going to win. He's here to survive. And that's boxing. And that's what it's been serving up my entire life. And there's only so long you can get away with that. Because it was the only fight sport. It was the only professional fight sport. Now it isn't. Now mixed martial arts, not only breathing down its neck, in a lot of ways it's outselling boxing 10-1.
Yeah, couldn't agree.
So boxing can't just continue down this road of putting shit fights on and then having a half-decent co-main or main event. It's got to pull its socks up and go, wait a minute, actually, fucking hell. UFC selling out tickets without even announcing who's on the bill. UFC go, we're doing UFC London tomorrow. It'll be sold out in 20 minutes. You know? And other than AJ, you ain't selling out arenas with anybody in this country unless you build the undercard and start, we're going to put this on, we're going to put that on. But again, even AJ fights, you might get AJ... Callum Smith let's take New York for example. It's just sprung to mind. You got Callum Smith against, gets a world-class knockout. Guy was a middleweight though, really. You got Katie Taylor against Delphine Bassoon. That was a good fight. The rest of the card was shite. But obviously AJ gets beat. It was overshadowed, whatever else. But that's as good as boxing gets. And we got 3 competitive fights on there.
Out of 10, yeah.
Out of 10.
Even when you look at the betting, most boxing weekends, most of them are like 1-33.
Yeah.
It's just, they're not competitive at all, are they?
Well, have a look at the UFC. Just have a look at the UFC this weekend. Have a look at the betting odds. Right, so people always come at me on social media. I've got any tips for the UFC? Yeah, mate, but I'm pissing in the wind. You know what I mean? It's UFC.
Fucking need to listen to him. He fucking doesn't.
A large part of my life is betting.
Right.
On betting on only boxing and UFC, a few horse racing when we get the little tips. But when you go through a UFC card, as you rightly say, it's so difficult. You've got to put in so many hours of research in order to get any angle.
Yeah.
I do quite well on boxing in terms of method of victory markets because I have a good understanding of people who are going to be able to get past 10 and 12 rounds and who are going to be able to survive someone who can't quite punch it as hard enough to get them out of there. But the way UFC is going, like to flip it back from boxing, for example, Paddy Pimblett, when he goes in, Paddy, correct me if I'm wrong, will face another person who is, harbours hopes of being world champion one day, right? And he won't go in and fight, I've got respect for them, but someone who's sort of 10 and 249, do you know what I mean? You go in and fight someone who's saying, right, I'm going for the belt as well, and that is the beauty of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that is why you're getting people now going, I used to think that was cage fighting, but it's good, isn't it? Do you know what people say to me all the time?
Well, even now, like, not necessarily young people, but certainly older people will go,
yeah,
it's the cage though, isn't it? And like, you do realise that you can't climb on the cage and jump off. Like, the cage isn't razors, you know what I mean? The cage is there, so if someone shoots for the takedown, you don't fall through the ropes. Like, the sport learned that early on. Shit, we need a cage, otherwise people will just be falling through the ropes all the time. So that's why the cage is there. Don't be threatened by it. It's there to protect the fighters and keep the fight enclosed. But yeah, there's I think we've moved on so much, and thankfully it's a generational thing. So I've got a 17-year-old nephew that has been to a boxing gym, done a bit of boxing training. If the big fights are coming up, he'll be like, oh, are you going to Tyson Fury? Or, there's a passive interest there. But him and all his mates are fucking glued to bits about UFC. They know about UFC every weekend. They know who's on. Oh, such and such is on. Oh, you spoke to such and such the other day. Oh my God. And I'm like, how do you know about some Kazakhstan? Like, we had 2 fights. Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. And I'm like, it's definitely a generational thing. Yeah. When we were kids, people on the playground dancing around going, oh, I'm Nazim, look at me, I'm Prince Naz, what?
Yeah.
Now kids are going, I'm Conor McGregor.
I'm Khabib.
I'm Khabib, I think it's definitely a generational thing, and it's because MMA as well as grew up on social media. You know, the social media age, it got early on. UFC, we've got our own social media. If you look at their YouTube numbers,
you say this all the time, don't you, George?
The content of the UFC is unrivaled, I think.
UFC Embedded is basically like 24/7. We used to get for boxing, Pacquiao, Mayweather 24/7.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, these are boss. Well, the UFC, I've been churning them out for pretty much every numbered event for the last 20 years and just putting it on YouTube, on their YouTube account.
Yeah,
so their YouTube figures are astronomical. Yeah. So they've got such a jump on boxing. And Eddie's right. Eddie Hearn is basically trying to copy the UFC model. But it'll never be competitive like the UFC until boxing changes, because the UFC basically is the NFL. What the UFC did is go, right, rather than have promoters and other promoters, rival promoters with us, we'll take over the UFC, we'll build it bigger, right, they're big in Japan, Pride, we'll buy them, take all their fighters, all the little fellas fight in WEC, World Extreme Champion, right, we'll have them, boom, we'll buy them out as well. And that's what they did. They just bought the best promotions in the world at the time. All you fighters are for us now, UFC, right, we are the NFL basically of MMA. So any MMA fighter training in any gym in the world isn't talking about going, oh, I want to, fight for this promoter or fight for that. They're just going, I want to get the UFC. Because once you get in the UFC, you've kind of made it.
And I guess if they've got that many fighters, they can put on shows every week then.
They do.
It's a road show, isn't it? Like Harlem Globetrotters, they just go around and, you might be English, but you'll be fighting on UFC, you'll be Phoenix or something like that. But
prior to lockdown, every weekend, all over the world, about 750 fighters on their roster. It's currently evolving. And it's one of them, you lose 3 or 4 fights on a spin and you haven't been entertaining. Sorry, Ace, go back to the lower leagues, boom, next signing, bring them in.
It's a mentality thing as well, because like Michael Chandler and people like that, they win world titles in, lower promotions, and because it is like a league table, he then gets into the UFC but doesn't class himself as the going in as the world champion. He's like, I want to be the UFC champion. Do you know what I mean? And it's a mentality thing, and I think it's helped by the fact that this generation of MMA fighters are, jiu-jitsu black belt, Olympic wrestlers. The striking's coming on leaps and bounds. In the early days, people probably turned off because it was, a big, heavy-set guy could throw one big old right hand, and if you block that, you'll do it. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
15 years ago, it was just dormant and hard cases in the UFC because there was no money in it. You were just going to fight in a cage, like that was the mentality. And then it was slowly martial artists got involved, and then obviously jiu-jitsu guys who had seen what the Gracies done when they first set it up, and slowly it became not necessarily just a like a folk sport, but far more technical then. And then it's been in cycles, like it often is. Like now at the moment, leg kicking is the big thing. Like everyone's you've got to have a good leg kick. I remember a couple of years ago, you've got to be a great wrestler. Everyone is a great wrestler now. Oh, right, okay, well now you've got to be a great leg kicker. So in 6-12 months time, it'll be, now you've got to, you've got to be able to take someone's back. That's the key.
I think the best thing is they say, when they both get on the floor, and they be both of these are jiu-jitsu black belts. Do you know what I mean?
50 years ago, this guy's a black belt jiu-jitsu and this guy's a boxer.
Yeah.
No one's that no more. Paddy Pimblett, he's part of that generation that the first day he walked into a gym, he was training MMA.
Yeah.
He was never training one thing or the other. It's been mixed martial arts for him. And there's kids I see now who are teenagers doing things in the gym, and I'm like, holy shit.
Just fucking ninjas.
When you get to the UFC, mate, you're going to be unreal. Unreal.
What are your thoughts, Nick, on Paddy?
I think he's brilliant, and I think he does he ticks both those boxes that we talked about. Christ, he can fight. I remember when he got offered to go into the UFC when he first came to Liverpool, when Till fought Wonderboy, and Molly got called up to the UFC. Then they tried to get Paddy in then, and he said, no, I'm not going in yet. When I remember speaking to him, and he said, when I go in, I'll be the fucking main event. I'm Paddy the baddie and all that. And he was a kid, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I love this kid. And then a couple of years of injuries, couple of defeats, issues in the gym all start going on, and you start thinking, shit, is it ever going to happen for him now? Like, he must be regretting now not taking a chance. And then that latest performance, he goes in, he's a man now.
Yeah, he's
big matured now. He's not just physically big, but when you speak to him now, he's still Paddy, he's still fun.
I was going to say that when I spoke to him.
Now, he's
so mature speaking to him, and he kind of said, I didn't have regrets about saying no to it because I wasn't ready. Mentally, he said I wasn't there, and it's great to speak to him and see exactly that. He's a man. He's man now. He's ready now.
I think what people don't give him credit for, he's an intelligent lad. He knows exactly. He done an interview the other day, and he's sort of saying, when I'm going to be a superstar, and it's not the way it used to be in terms of, as you say, I'm Paddy the baddie, I'm going to be the main event. It's that quiet confidence in it. It's the fact that I know who I am now. I know where I'm going. So
comfortable in his own skin. I think a lot of it was bravado earlier. He knew he was a boy. Whereas now he's a full-grown man now, and he's ready now. He's mentally ready to take it on. And listen, you don't know what's going to happen. And has he got the ability and the potential? Absolutely. Is it going to be an easy run? Is it?
No.
Because there is no soft touch. You look at that lightweight division, you think, oh my God, some of them are monsters. So then you think, is he going to go back down to featherweight? Oh, fuck me, there's monsters of featherweight as well. And the problem is, the featherweight and lightweight divisions, they're the most populated divisions. So they're stacked to bits. So you look at Jai Herbert, who was a Cage Warriors champion as well. He's fighting this weekend on Saturday night. He gets an absolute killer on his UFC debut, gets stopped. Then he matched him with someone else at Christmas, another killer. That fight got postponed, Jai got COVID. Now this weekend he's fighting, and you just think, come on, cut him a break, will you? But then you look at and you think, well, this is
what we're here for.
There is no breaks. No. There is no easy touch. That's the whole point. And that's why it's great that sport and boxing needs to take this on as well. Is that you're not over when you lose a fight. It's not career end. It's not career ending. So what, you've lost. Great. That guy was better than you on a day. Go back and now, okay, he's subbed you out. Go and work on your jiu-jitsu. Go and work on your takedown.
I controversially, which shouldn't be controversial, but it is, I like when a boxer loses. I genuinely do. I get more invested. Daniel Dubois, perfect example. Daniel Dubois, I seen what he was. He looks like, look to be general, but looks like Joshua, fights like him, can hit like a freight train. But you say, okay, let's see how far he goes. He gets beat. I am fully invested in his journey now. I'm like, I want to see what happens. He's gone to Shane McGuigan. He's developing. Like, you think, right, I'm on board now. The perfectness of boxing. Floyd Mayweather's got a lot to thank for this. But it's like, that doesn't actually mean anything. And I think it is there's a few fighters now who are starting to realise, Canelo's at the top of the sport. He got beat by Floyd and stuff, and he had a couple of draws early on. It's not the end of the world, and I think boxing needs that more than
Listen, I'm as guilty as anybody. There's loads of times I've been doing boxing commentary and been like, someone's always got to go and blah, blah, and you're trying to build it up, and it's just promoter speak. And in hindsight, now I look back and think, I wasn't doing anyone any favours there. Picking up a loss should be part of sport. It's part of proving yourself. Muhammad Ali became Muhammad Ali not because he went undefeated the entire time, because of the adversity that he faced and the losses that he had and the way he came back from those losses, and then going into fights, world title fights, as a huge underdog because you'll never be forming, what you kidding that, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. And the fact that he did those moments and he had the rope-a-dope moments, and that's what's made him Muhammad Ali. That's how he's achieved true greatness. And you could argue Conor McGregor's benefited from that, getting tapped out by Nate Diaz, then coming back, avenging the loss, making sure it was at the same weight so there was no excuses. That's greatness.
That's one of the fights I was most invested in. I was dying to just see him avenge that loss, and then I wanted to see what he'd say at the end, and and all that. It was just, I agree with you both. I think it's not great when you see someone lose, but then you're just like, come on, let's see how you're going to react.
You get your biggest opportunities a lot of the time on the back of a loss, because people go, do you know what, he can get chinned in. I'll fight him now.
But in regards to boxing versus MMA, I get asked all the time, if you could choose either, where would you rather be? A big UFC fight or a big boxing match? And like just prior to lockdown, in the space of weeks, I was at a Conor McGregor fight in Las Vegas, and then 3 weeks later I was at Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder in Las Vegas. And it's kind of impossible to separate them, because those are those moments when my sport is a bit of a goldfish bowl. I accept that. But in those moments, you feel like the world's watching now. Like, this is not just a boxing thing. This is not just a UFC thing. This is a global thing now. The whole world is watching this going, fuck me.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor, fuck me. Fury versus Wilder, heavyweight championship of the world. So for different reasons, I'd have to go on the fence and say both. Conor feels like now, the UFC feels like now. Right now, this is a moment in history where I will look back and tell my grandkids, covered Conor McGregor fights in Las
100%.
Vegas. It was amazing. I was commentating ringside when Darren Till walked out, you know, to Sweet Caroline and in the Echo Arena, the first ever UFC show in Liverpool. Like, these are the memories that I cherish. But then you've got the history when you're at a heavyweight championship of the world in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand in Madison Square Garden. You're watching Terence Crawford, and you're looking around the walls thinking, fuck me, Ali fought in here. You know what I mean? And there's that history side of it. You think there's over 100 years of history in this sport, and now I'm right at the cutting edge of all that history and everything that goes with it. So they're very, very different emotions, and in very different crowds as well. Like, UFC is young, is social media, blah blah blah, videos everywhere, like blah blah blah. And then a boxing fight week is still Radio Row. All the radio stations have camped out from across America in the MGM. All the old hacks are there, walking around, chewing cigars. And, you know what I mean? All like
Don King still in there.
There's that whole generation thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're like, fucking hell, that guy was commentating on, you know, such and such a fight.
Yeah.
Whereas UFC is completely the opposite. You know, I'm probably one of the oldest journalists covering UFC, which is mad, but the level of the amount of eyeballs on both are comparable.
Yeah. It's
I
such
just
a
think the UFC, you need to be careful, because people watching this are 20 years younger than the people watching this.
Yeah. It's such a young sport as well, isn't it? Like, how long's the UFC been going? 25 years, is it?
28 years. Well, the UFC is about, can't be longer than 30 years.
So it's so, as you say, in relative terms, it's still like a baby. Do you know what I mean? It's still learning where, like, its little place in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's, I think, for boxing, mate, that's the dangerous thing. And
Yeah, I think with UFC and MMA in general, right now I'm part of the English Mixed Martial Arts Association, which is being put together by a group of people who are involved in mixed martial arts in the UK. People like Mark Goddard and Dan Hardy, you know, people who have been around the sport forever. Everyone on the board is deep-rooted in the sport of mixed martial arts. And what we're doing now is we're speaking to Sport England and the government, because one thing that MMA hasn't got, pretty much universally, but you know, certainly in the UK and England, we don't have a governing body. We don't have anybody looking over the sport at the moment, because, you know, most sports start at football, boxing, they start at amateur level, don't they? It's Corinthian sport, it goes like that, and then professional sports and TV and networks, and then it mushrooms up into this huge billion-dollar business. UFC, MMA is the exact opposite. We started with the UFC, the billion-dollar business, pay-per-view all over the world, and now we're trying to put roots in to make sure kids' gyms have got the right type of coaching, that the people coaching the kids have been police checked, that the gyms are getting cleaned properly, that they, you know, it's mad building a sport backwards. And we're going to the government now going, are you aware of mixed martial arts? Oh yeah, Conor McGregor and all that. Yeah, Sam. We give UFC an entertainment license every year to come here. No problem. Yeah, but are you aware how many kids across the country are training mixed martial arts? How many gyms now are open? You know, in Liverpool alone, there must be at least 20 mixed martial arts gyms. 20. I don't know who's coaching in them all, and that doesn't mean I should know everything. But what I mean is, are you taking your kids to the right gyms?
Yeah.
Are the coaches there? What are their qualifications? Do you know what I mean?
Totally,
it needs to be, and thankfully the government have been really receptive, and hopefully we're on our way to, because we're doing it in England, and someone else is doing it in Wales, and someone else is doing it in Ireland, and someone's doing it in France, and we all report to the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, which is a federation based out of Stockholm in Sweden, where it is completely regulated, where it is completely, government. There's an infrastructure there where the government look over the sport of MMA, and that's where we need to be globally. Because eventually, once you get a decent global spread, once you've got governments around the world recognising it as a sport, then you can manage it better. Then you can ensure you get funding for amateur clubs. Then the kids get tournaments and championships. And now, wait and see. You see what the talent's like then.
Yeah.
When it's actually got funding behind it, and then obviously the long-term goal at amateur level is to get into the Olympics.
It's taking it away from cage fighting to mixed martial arts, isn't
absolutely.
it? And like France has only just made it not illegal. Like in the
last 12 months.
Yeah, like
really.
Yeah.
And they,
it's illegal to train MMA and fight.
So they
couldn't do a pro show in France.
No.
You got a fighter this weekend, Cyril Gane. He's French, isn't he? Like to go away and fight elsewhere, like in different countries and train in different countries. But so
that's France.
It's not like this, placing the back end of the.
Yeah.
But again, it's just about education and understanding. And listen, in my lifetime, there will be mixed martial arts in the Olympic Games. That's a fact. It will happen because the IOC aren't stupid, and the IOC realise that the success of the Olympic Games is based on eyeballs. It's based on people actually wanting to watch it. And you've got certain sports in there that may have been in there 30, 40 years that people aren't watching and people aren't interested in. And every year, wrestling, for one, comes under pressure every year. We see the headlines every time there's an Olympic year. Oh, wrestling's under threat, because nobody watches wrestling.
Yeah.
Unless you're an American collegiate or you're in certain parts of Dagestan, nobody gives a fuck about wrestling, as tough as it is. And I think mixed martial arts going in actually wouldn't be against wrestling. It would help, I think, because it would, like Taekwondo's in there at the moment, boxing, of course. But I think mixed martial arts going in as well would help the other sports rather than counter against them, because you could create a fighting wing, if you like, of the Olympic movement. You could be like, right, this is our fight zone. We have boxing all morning, then we do jiu-jitsu, then we have the MMA, then we have tomorrow we do the wrestling. I think more people buy into that.
And it's more opportunity, isn't it? Because, you see, like Fraser Clark, who's on the... I think he's sort of qualified now, but he's been on the Olympic team for years and years, 12 years or something. People are always falling off because they're not quite the number one pick in boxing. It's that net, though, isn't it? Say, maybe, come over and try this. You don't realise where that career can then take you. It's, at the moment, sort of, with boxing as well. Unless they turn pro, but they're going to turn pro with no profile. Eddie might sign a couple of them, but, then you go back to this, what we talk about with Luke selling tickets and stuff, you eventually lose a couple. It's about, if you accept mixed martial arts for what it is, it doesn't just help mixed martial arts, it helps the entire... it helps sport.
Well, Danny Roberts lived in Liverpool. He moved to Liverpool from Bristol to chase his boxing dream and was working the doors, but was a pro boxer. But he didn't have the right manager, he didn't have the right promoter, he didn't, so it would be a case of, right, I've got you a fight this weekend. It's a cruiserweight. Danny'd be like, well, I'm a middleweight.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Oh, all right, I'll take it then. So he'd take it and get beat. So they'd be like, well, wait, no, I'm not a journeyman. I mean, I want to be I've had a good amateur career. I'm working harder than anybody else. I'm the hardest working in the gym. And he had so much potential, but he didn't have the right setup. And Danny can talk as well. Danny works as a model, a male model, so he looks the part. Ticked every box except having the wrong team behind him. And funny, we were in Sefton Park walking our dogs one day, and he just said to me, listen, my coach didn't turn up yesterday, he was too busy, and he was training the 051. And he went, so I went down to Next Gen in the basement and did a jiu-jitsu class, and was talking to Paul Ribber and blah, blah, and he said I should get into MMA, what you reckon? And I was like, Dan, this was, 10, 12 years ago, whatever. I said, Dan, do it now. Because everyone going into MMA is coming from grappling and jiu-jitsu. You're going to come from boxing. And the one thing grapplers and jiu-jitsu, this was before the sport is what it is now. The problem with guys who like to grapple is they don't like getting punched in the face. And they shit them. Look at Brock Lesnar. As soon as someone punched him in the face, his ass went. Because he hasn't conditioned to be punched in the face. I said, if you can learn grappling and jiu-jitsu, then you like being punched in the face. You're like, kind of come at it the other way. And I'd like to think I was one of many voices in his ear going, go for it, man, go for it. Next thing you know, MMA debut. Next thing you know, fighting for titles. Next thing you know, he's in the UFC, living in Florida. And now, he's a massive Liverpool success story. And I'd like to think I was a tiny little part of persuading him to do it. But that, again, the sport was different then. But there's...
On the UFC, you've been there, like you say, in all those top venues, top fights. Have you got close to any of the fighters and you kind of think, I love him, who's your kind of favourite who you've been in and amongst with in the UFC? Because I guess I look at it, right, and although we spoke about some of the dickhead things he's done, McGregor, I just think, like, he just makes me laugh. He just fucking makes me howl, like, do you know what I mean? And I wonder who it is who maybe off camera you think, oh, nah, he's fucking actually a good guy. And as funny as he is, or as a bit dickhead as he is, whatever he's doing, nah, he's actually, you know...
I remember Conor when he was fighting at Cage Warriors before he signed for the UFC. And then I remember being in Stockholm, Sweden, and he just signed for the UFC. And we were sitting in a hotel lobby, and Conor had come in, said hello to a few people, larger than life, but he was still early days Conor, no one really knew who he was then, larger than life, and he kind of walked past, and I caught his eye and kind of led on as he walked into a lift, and he didn't let on back, and I was like, for a brief second I think to myself, oh fucking hell, we're at the UFC now, are we? And no word of a lie, as soon as I had that thought, I just seen his arm come out the lift and he come back out. I'm like, Nick, all right, nice. And come over and shook my hand. And I just thought, right, you're the same Conor then, that's sound. And to be fair, to this day, even though he doesn't recognise me that much, whenever we do media, whenever we're around him and his team, he's fucking brilliant. You walk in, we'll have a suite ready, cameras are all set up, like Adam's been interviewing him last few times, all sorted. He'll bounce in the room, always got a little coffee in his hand, but he's always like, bomb, 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 shakes everyone's, how we doing, how's things, who else he's been doing today, what did he say, what did I sound, okay, let's go. And he's consummate professional, always delivers, always got a sound bite, but he's still gracious about it, you know. And then, you know, last time I was with him on Fight Island, does the interview stuff, blah blah, he was laughing at me being commissioner, we were asking about it, and then off camera we were like, you know, what's happening from here? And basically, you know, his team were going, yeah man, we're fucking flying to Dubai tomorrow, we're going to announce the Pacquiao fight.
Oh yeah.
And we were like, get the fuck, like, yeah mate, we've got a chopper ready, as soon as Dustin's taken care of, we're going to Dubai, we're going to meet Manny in Dubai, got a press conference, going to announce it this week. And at the time you're like, fuck, Conor's world, man, it's mad. But then when he gets beat, you go, oh shit.
Manny's there like that.
About to announce $100 million boxing match with Manny Pacquiao. Cancel the helicopter points. And I truly think, had he lost on points, not only had he been submitted, he'd have still got that fight. It was the fact that Poirier knocked him out.
That's mad, that, isn't it?
Can't sell a fight with Pacquiao no money, he's been chinned. $100 million down the drain. How mad is that? But I think Conor's learned from it, because when you look at his team then, he had like 2 or 3 boxing coaches, his old amateur boxing coach, sparring partners were all young Irish international boxers. Like, Conor, man, this is fucking Dustin Poirier to get through first. I think he's learned that the hard way, and I think now this time around, I think you'll see a different Conor McGregor.
Do you think that Pacquiao fight's dead in the water now then?
I think it's dead in the water until he gets a win again and becomes Conor McGregor again, and then who knows, but then Pacquiao's now fighting Errol Spence. So if he loses to Errol Spence, which he's more than likely going to do, because Errol Spence is mustered and, you know, about 10 years younger than him, 20 years younger than him, then is Pacquiao still that draw that makes Conor 100 million? That's, I don't know. That. Could be the fight that got away, the 100 million that got away.
I think just in general, you speak about Conor, I think it must be hard for him, and no disrespect to you, but I don't know how well you know him, but it must be hard to keep those relationships, mustn't it? Where, like, you think of how mad his life is, how many people come into his life. In my memory is terrible anyway. I see people in Tesco's from school or something, and I'm like, fuck, what's his name again? You know, you're mad how his life must be fucking crazy, mustn't it?
Of course. And like, you see him and he'll go, oh, nice to see you, and you're like,
you can see he's on a rack.
You don't even remember me, but this is probably the 10th time we've had an interview. Do you know what I mean? But then you think, in the fucking grand scheme of things, though, do you know what I mean? The amount of people he has interviewing or asking him for interviews.
Just interacting with,
But it's changed with Conor over the years, because obviously when I was editor of Fighters Only, he got injured, he done his knee ligaments fighting Max Holloway, a couple of fights into his UFC career, and he said, right, I'm going to stay, I'm going to move to LA. Temporarily, I'm going to see this special knee surgeon, this guy who was famous for healing NFL athletes. Conor's going to go and live in LA for a bit and get his knee rehab properly and shit like that. And we were like, sound okay. So I remember reaching out to his team then, I'm going, any chance of sending a crew down there, getting a photographer with them for a few days, and, you know, we'll do some cool shots and all that. And this was like, because they were building Conor then, they were like, yeah man, what you need? I said, well, I'll get a photographer down there, spend 2-3 days with them. Sound, no problem. So we had this amazing photographer called Tom Bear. He's still a top sports photographer in LA now. and he spent a couple of days with Conor, and you should see the photographs we got back. Not only at the physio, you know, bouncing on balancing balls, wearing all mad gear, but the tattoo parlour, then out strip clubs, drinking whiskies, blah, all NFL players with him, just a real spotlight into his life. And in hindsight, you look back and go, fuck me, the access we got then was incredible compared to now. And now you'll go like, any chance of interviewing Conor? And they're like, well, no, you're MMA media. He doesn't do MMA media outside of this window anymore. He'll do the Conan O'Brien show, or he'll do, you know, Sports Illustrated cover once a year, or Men's Health will beg for 4 years, and he'll eventually do a Men's Health cover and all this kind of stuff. He's not on. He's not a mixed martial artist anymore. He's a global superstar, not just a sports star, a superstar. And you have to realise there's a certain pecking order that goes with that, you know. And you know, at the end of the day, I can still ring Ricky Hatton and get an interview with him tomorrow. But the relationship with Conor has had to evolve because the demands on Conor McGregor are so much bigger than any fighter in mixed martial arts history.
To link it to the fight, do you think that sort of him being in the stratosphere has sort of been his, not his downfall because he's still competitive, but sort of being at that level outside of the octagon, do you think that's played into the fact that, you know, he did get beat by Poirier last time, or he's not quite looked the same?
I just think it's not just one thing. It's the Marvin Hagler shout, innit?
Yeah.
You know, can you get up in the morning if you're sleeping on silk sheets and all that? I truly believe that's a thing. You know,
100%, yeah.
When I met Conor, he was on a dole. When I met Conor, he was at Cage Warriors, and his girlfriend was supporting him full time, and he was just like, you know, living in the gym, training 24/7, and in some rusty fucking shitty gym, the back end of Dublin. It's like that's a different level of hunger to now. I'm on his social media every day, and I'm seeing Conor on his bike doing 10 miles in Dubai on his way to the gym, or now he's in LA and he's in the gym and he's hitting the bags and all that. I'm like, mate, that's brilliant. But you're riding a bike on your own. Where's everyone else? You're not running Everton Hills. Like, if you go to Everton Hills 6 o'clock any morning, you'll see half a dozen Scouse boxers running up and down them hills, pushing each other, grinding each other. They're not going, oh, you know what? I'm going to ride a bike 10 miles to the gym today, make sure you put this on my socials. And that's not to say Conor's not working, but is anyone there going, no, you're not, you're going to ride 20 miles to the gym?
Yeah.
You're not hitting that bag for 10 minutes, you're hitting that bag for 3 hours. You know, I don't know whether he's got that anymore.
No.
Because he is bigger than anything the sport has seen before.
And who can you answer to when you get that big, I think?
That's the problem. Who's going to say to Conor,
Like,
you're here at 6?
He goes, lad, I'll be there at 7. And the manager goes, well, I want you there at 6. And he's like, well, I fucking pay you wage, so you'll be there at 7.
The 5% or the 10% that you get off me has changed your life and your family's life and everyone's life around you. So when I say we'd train at 7, we'd train at 7. Now, listen, Conor's a grafter. He always has been. And is he still hungry for success? Undoubtedly. You know, that hunger hasn't been, that fire inside him hasn't been totally burnt out. But to get to that success, you've got to have someone pushing you, you've got to have someone standing over you and grinding you and making you go to places you don't want to go. You know yourself, you go to the gym, you do workouts on your own, you come out and you go, oh, I've just smashed that workout. But then the next day your mate goes, do you want to come to the gym? And then you're both pushing each other like knobheads. Yeah. You think, fuck, I've done it now, I've done a proper workout.
I think
that's the difference.
That money and power thing is such a crazy dynamic in all walks of life. I always remember on Joe Rogan, there was... what's her name? Demi Lovato. Yeah, she was on, and
she's been through a few UFC fighters in her time.
Yeah. She's ranked number 2. Coming for the belt.
Well, she was on. She was like, I didn't know much about her, but she failed to mention any of that. But she was she was a child star coming through, and obviously made a lot of money. And she spoke about this weird dynamic where she was making, you know, that much money, and now her parents were living in a mansion and all this, and you know, her fortune changed her parents' life, and then her parents are still being like, right, you know, make your bed, or, you know, get in for tea, and she's like, fucking no, where are you? Because of me, fucking I'll have me tea when I want. And it's a mad thing, whether it's parents, whether it's your trainer. I think that amount of money and power, you've got, like you say, you've got to be that 0.01% to be able to manage that and to still be successful with all that going on.
Yeah, I think you've got that. Then another thing you've got, which I think affected the first fight, is Conor's not Conor anymore. 2 reasons. He's a dad now. I think it's shaped him slightly. You know what I mean? His edges aren't as sharp. He's not as aggressive. He doesn't swear as much. He doesn't go for people as much. His trash talking's been curbed a little bit. And I think that's
think that's
being
from being
a
a
role
dad.
model. Yeah, I think being a role model, being a father, he has his kids around him all the time. Which, listen, mate, if I was in a job that I could take my kids and my wife with me all over the world, I'd do it if I could afford to do it because I love being with them. So I get the fact that they're there. But when he's sitting doing an interview, whereas 5 years ago I would sit and do an interview with Connor, or be in a room while he's doing an interview, and Connor be going, I'm fucking doing this and motherfucker, blah 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 blah, being Connor, and you're like, oh man. But I think inside that gets him ready for war. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah man, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. These guys can't live with me, lifting Jose Aldo's belt before he lifted it and all that, and I own Brazil, tearing pictures and all that. And you think, fuck, that's you getting in the state for war. You're getting ready, and you're getting everyone going with you along the way. Also, you're intimidating the guy sitting over there who's going, he's just touched my belt. You can't touch a belt when you're not a world champion. It's that hoodoo of don't touch it until you win it. Come on, fucking, that's mine, I'll have that, blah blah blah. That affected him psychologically and affected his opponent psychologically. Now he's sitting there with his kids, drinking a coffee, having a laugh and a joke. He's not going to swear in front of his own children. Then he's also being complimentary about Dustin Poirier. Oh, Dustin's great, does great stuff for charity and all that. I'm going to make sure to donate after the fight. And so now Dustin's watching that interview going, all right, sad, okay, I'll just do me then. And then add into the mix, you're on Fight Island. All this is behind closed doors. There's no fans. There's no audience to play to. There's no 30,000 Irishmen who flew in especially for the fight, who've been on the pop all day, that turn up at the press conference or the weigh-in and they're all like, Connor! And he comes out, strips off and feeds off that emotion. And the opponent's like, oh my God, this is fucking huge. I've never seen anything like this before, and now I'm in the spotlight. Connor would create this circus around him that nobody had ever seen before. So if you're fighting him and you walk into that and you think, this is my first main event, what the fuck? It's 30,000 people at a weigh-in. I don't get 30,000 people at my fights. It's a different world. So suddenly everything's different, everything's changed. You're not in the same routine of I put this glove on first, that glove on. You're fighting Conor McGregor and you know it. It's in your head now, you can't get it out. Jose Aldo, Eddie Alvarez, all these big iconic moments in his career. Part of that was created because of the bubble he created around himself. Jose Aldo ran out like a dickhead. He just slipped back and clipped him. Eddie Alvarez won belts all over the world. Conor absolutely smashed him to bits in his first fight at lightweight. And you're like, it's mad. But he created this situation. And that all went with the fact, yes, he had ability, but he created this moment. And I think now, COVID lockdown, there's no audience to play to. You've got kids now. You're not the same person. You're a father. You're mature. You're a bit more respectful, if you like. And then you throw into the mix that you've got the kind of money in the bank account that those little kids running around, their kids don't have to work.
Different animal. Their kids don't have to work.
But it's a different animal. You can't be the same Conor McGregor. You can't.
I don't know if you can flick back either, because if he pulls up this in the third fight and it's all disrespect and he really tries to push that on, people are going to be like, well, last time you were holding Dustin Poirier's hot sauce and you were like, it's not as believable as it once was. Do you know what I mean? And I know that in the second fight he didn't do the old Billy walk or nothing like that. And it's trying to get back, isn't it, and get people in again and be like, I am a thug, I am crazy, but whether he's just past that and now
maybe it doesn't have to be the thug. Maybe it's time to see part 3. Maybe it's time for a new chapter. And I did read something the other day saying my wife and kids aren't going to be at this fight camp. They won't be in Vegas. They won't be there. And I thought that's a good thing. But it's going to be interesting. Listen, if anyone can do it, Conor can do it. If anyone can reinvent themselves again, it's Conor McGregor.
The fucked up thing is, if he wins, if he wins this, he probably then skips where he was at before this. Do you know what I mean? He goes up a level.
Because the man, I was commentating ringside when Dustin beat him, and I'm like, fuck. And now he's going into this so much jeopardy. If he loses here, he's no longer a title contender. He's outside the top 5 at lightweight. Like, you can't lose. Dustin Poirier, people argue, is the number 1, even though Oliveira's got the belt. But if Conor loses again to Dustin, then he's certainly below Charles Oliveira. He's probably down, starting to push him down a pecking order now. So his only future after that for me would be move to welterweight, fight Masvidal for the BMF belts, fight Nate Diaz. They're incredibly lucrative circus fights, you know what I mean? We love them, don't get me wrong, they're massive, and he'd probably make more money fighting them than he would fighting Charles Oliveira for the belt, because everyone's obsessed with that whole craziness of the BMF and everything. But if you're truly in this to be the best in the world, to leave a legacy as the greatest of all time, and I believe Conor, whether he believes it, he certainly says it, then you can't go that way. You've got to beat Dustin Poirier, become lightweight champion of the world again. People go, holy fuck, he did it. Yeah. And then we go, does anybody stand up?
There's no legacy that can ever stand up next to that, do you know what I mean?
Exactly. So again, we come back to the point we made earlier about these fighters and the pressure they put themselves under.
Yeah, that's
it's
crazy.
Easy to go, yeah, Conor loses, he's a multi-millionaire, who cares? But his legacy will care. Yeah. People go, well, you had the right fight at the right time.
Yeah, pick holes in it, don't they? No matter what. It's just, you know, I genuinely can't wait for the third fight. I think, you know, it's one of them. No matter where, even if he does go on and lose and goes to Masvidal, a Conor McGregor fight week, he'll always get eyeballs. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? People want to know.
Maybe now he hasn't. May I sit there now just watching 20-minute clips of fights and stuff now. He's just, I love him. I think he's great.
Oh, to take it back, obviously to you, the Fight Disciples podcast. Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of it myself. So cheers for the content. But you know, it's not just fun. You are award-winning podcast.
Yeah, mad. So we started it 5.5 years ago. I was still editor of Fighters Only at the time, and I was begging them to do a podcast, and they weren't interested. And then obviously I came back to Liverpool, but I was still working as the editor remotely. And then I met Adam, and you know, we made Fight Disciples in a couple of hours, and then by the following week, boom, we started doing shows, and then 12 months in, we were shortlisted British Podcast Awards for Best Sports Show, won it. We were like, shit. And then everyone was like, oh, right, you know, in London, typical fucking London, everyone comes up with a glass of champagne. Would you like an advertising deal with something? Come to us. And literally over a beer in London, we said, you know what? Let's say no to everything for a year, because we're only a year in. We were just doing it for a laugh. Let's say don't accept any sponsorship for another year, because our number, you know, we've only been doing it a year. We don't have mad numbers or nothing. And that's the number one advice to anyone starting a podcast. Don't even look at your numbers for 18 months. Don't even do it, because you'll kill yourself. Don't even torture yourself, because fundamentally, if you're on there, if you start a podcast about stamp collecting, and you're talking about stamps and how passionate you are, and you're so into stamps, but you've only got one person listening. But that listener could be the head producer of Good Morning Breakfast, and they might go, shit, we need someone on about stamp collecting. I know someone. I listen to his podcast. Next thing you know, you're on Good Morning Britain or whatever. So you shouldn't worry about your numbers. But anyway, we didn't. We went, fuck it. Let's say no to all these knobheads for another year. Let's just do another year. And then we did another year. We were shortlisted again. And then we went to the awards and we won it again. And we were like, fucking hell, this is actually this is
incredible.
Cool. You know, and I jacked my job in by then. I was doing this full time, and again, I was doing it full time, but I was also working for the Education magazine in Liverpool. I was editing their magazine. People don't see that. People just think, he's running a podcast, living the time of his life. No, I'm doing that now, but I spent 2 years editing an Education magazine. I'm not interested in education, but I had to pay the mortgage. And I wanted to be in a position where if BT Sport rang me, or if the BBC rang me and said, come and do a radio show, come and do a TV show, can you come to London tomorrow? I had to be accessible to go, yeah man, of course, that's what I'm doing. So anyway, long story short, we then cracks on. We eventually start getting a bit of advertising involved, but we've always had advertisers that we can kind of like, that we'd use, you know what I mean? Like, we've got Manscaped at the moment, and like, we've had a laugh doing Manscaped adverts, and to be fair to them, they said, there's Manscaped and there's a script, and Adam just went to me, should we just fucking have a laugh? So we did one, and then they rang us and went, listen, that was unreal, like, we want to sign up for 3 months. And then we went, Sam, fucking keep going then. Yeah. So I've been shaving the dog with the Manscaped, dick pics, everything. We've had a laugh at it. And now they've just signed up again. They've been our sponsor for over 6 months now, and you know, it makes a big difference, you know. But people need to realise we've been doing a podcast 4.5 years before we got a decent sponsor. We'd had a few William Hill hits here and there, and various, you know, betting companies. I do a thing with Unibet at the moment where I just do a written column for them, and they've been great, but this is our first real, like, you know, advertiser. But again, it took us 5 years and 2 award nominations, and to get to a position where we become feasible, and we've got good numbers. Like, we by far do bigger numbers than any other boxing podcast in the UK. not quite at Joe Rogan levels yet, unfortunately, but we're doing really well. So yeah, and I think the key, to be honest, is the fact that me and Adam stumbled across each other.
Yeah.
Just meeting Adam. He was at Radio 1, living his dream, fucking, the full funky DJ thing. But got to a point where he thought, it's not really commercial radio I want to do, it's sport I want to be a sports presenter. So he left Radio 1 and was started pursuing that, and then he was just doing a few shifts in Liverpool, and I just happened to ring up and we just happened to meet. And his big passion's always been fight sports, and we started the podcast, and then I've got dead lucky because, again, for me, he's the best presenter out there, and I'm pretty enthusiastic about both sports. So we got lightning in a bottle, and it's a little bit like Ant and Dec situation, you know what I mean? It's like, we might not have a face for TV, but we certainly have a face for radio and podcasting. And that's it. I've only known him 5.5 years, yet he's one of my best mates, and has been one of my best mates pretty much since the day I met him.
Yeah.
Similar families. He's from Stockport, or Blackburn originally, but lives in Stockport, and he's got 2 kids who are basically the same age as my kids. Our wives get on, and we just hit it off straight away, and that's the success of the podcast.
I love how you say that, mate, as well, because from the podcast from day one as well, I've said I don't care who's listening to it, as long as I'm enjoying meeting these cool people, and that's it. And I've so many people message us asking for advice, and I give them advice and say, if I was you, I'd buy this microphone and do this and do that and this. And people stop doing it after a couple of months when they're not an overnight success, and they've not got celebrity status, and they've not got a million hits, and fuck me, it takes a while to and even still we're 18 months, 2 years in, and not hitting numbers that maybe other podcasts are, but you've got to be doing it for the right reasons.
Exactly. You can't do it and think, I'm going to make a living out of this. You can't, because it'll never work. No. We never set out to do that. We did it for a year for a laugh and won an award and went, oh, no, this is good. We did it for another year until all the advertisers to fuck off, refused to answer emails, just being knobheads, because we were both working full time, both enjoyed it, both had money coming in. And then at the end of the second year, I was doing more work for BT Sport still from my old fight only connections. So they were still using me as a UFC pundit. And then I started talking to BT Sport then and going, listen, why don't we do a magazine show? Adam is the man.
Yeah.
And I had everyone at BT Sport then listening to Adam. So they all became Fight Disciples fans. So then I had everyone at BT Sport and the UFC in London starting going, these two work. I know we use Nick sparingly at the moment, but what can we do to build the show? So again, me, Adam, Dan Hardy, went to Dan Hardy's house. We made a video, we made a show, filmed it all, mics, the full it, we packaged it, we went to BT Sport, because me and Dan were working for BT. Again, Dan was working regular, I was doing bits. And we went, there you go, there's a show for you, you should do that. And then BT Sport went, fuck, it works, let's come, let's have a look here, and then the funny thing is, they went, right, we're going to launch this show. So we're going to have Adam presenting, we're going to have Dan as the pundit, and we're going to bring in a fighter or a coach. And I was like, I fucking put this thing together. I brought Adam in. I convinced Dan to do a show. Motherfucker.
It's like the Ardennes of Washington.
So UFC London, there's a show, post-fight show and shit like that. And I'm in the bar afterwards and they all come in and I'm just like, how'd it go? And I'm thinking, fucking you dare say it was box action. And they were like, yeah, it was alright. And I was like, motherfuckers. And then episode 2, they rang and said, listen, we're going to try something else. Can you come in? We're going to do a 45-minute show again, but can you come in for the last 15 minutes? So we'll have Adam and Dan, a fighter, and then for the last 15 minutes we'll bring you in to, blah blah. And I'm like, yes, Sam, no problem. At the end of the day, it's fucking work.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to be a knobhead and, look, no, if you don't want me now. I was like, mate, I'll take 5 minutes, whatever, sound. And then we did the last 15 minutes, and obviously
clicked.
We've got me and Dan have been mates for years. He used to write a column for me at Fighters Only, and obviously I've covered his entire career. He's an absolute diamond, and the best brain in MMA. His breakdowns are unreal. And the three of us just You could just tell.
Yeah.
Once we'd done 15 minutes, I thought, there's fucking no way they're not going to use that again.
Episode 3, we don't need you this week.
So then from there, then it became the three of us, and then it grew, and then they started sending us to events and sending us here, there, and everywhere, and then, obviously, unfortunately, now Dan's been moved on, and Mike Bisping's come in. But again, you've got me from Liverpool, a lad from Blackburn, and a lad from Chorley, or whatever Bisping's from. So it's just fucking a laugh.
Gosh, mate, that your whole journey there, mate, and again, Jordan, great shout from getting you on there, mate, because I just love it how it's just like, it's so relatable to just a lad who loves sport, who likes it, and think, you know what, I'll have a go. I'll just have a go and see where it takes me, and you've worked hard at it. You've
got a degree. I didn't go to university and get a journalism degree or anything like that. I was trying to do an English degree, but I went to Liverpool City College, and it was their first year of a journalism course, and I was only there to try and bag off with the hairdressers at Colford. My mate was on a chef course, so the chefing course was on one floor, and then there was 2 floors of hairdressers, and he was like that to me, mate, it's full of beer. So obviously I'm a 16-year-old, like, fumbling my way through, or 17, fumbling my way through my A-levels or whatever. Oh, sad, I'll be there. And then I was down there all the time because I got to eat for free because all the chefs were making the food. So he was like, I'd say that. Oh, great. And then there's birds everywhere. So I'm like, all right, yeah. And then I was wandering around one day, and I literally went up to the top floor, and there was a thing just saying journalism class. So I went in and said to the woman, I said, listen, I'm just finished my A-levels. I'm getting on a degree course. What's journalism all about? Sandy Felton, her name was. She used to work for The Guardian. I don't know whether she still teaches journalism in Liverpool, but it was like Liverpool's first ever journalism class. And she went, well, tell you what, come in, come and sit down, and take a couple of lessons, see what you think. When does your course start? I said, it doesn't start for a few months. Try and come in and, see if you like it. And then 2 years later, I qualified, I passed the course.
Love that.
And when I passed, she went, you do know this is a post-grad course, you didn't even fucking do it. And I was like, save 3 years, didn't I?
Well, that's 28 grand.
Yeah, it's buzzing, yeah.
It's the old butterfly effect, isn't it? Just where you are. But honestly, I know you're quite self-depreciating in terms of saying you winged it, but you're brilliant at what you're doing.
Mate, I appreciate it. And as I say, the favourite thing for people to call me on social media is a casual. He's a fucking casual, that fella. He's just like a fanboy. I think people don't realise that when you're on camera with a brilliant presenter, the first ever UFC champion from England who's fucking been there, done it, wore the t-shirt, or Dan, who's been there, done it, wore the t-shirt, and he's a super brain. What role am I supposed to play? You know what I mean? Am I supposed to come in there and go, actually, Dan, technically you're wrong there, what he should have done? Of course, my job is to go, this is the best place in the world to be right now, because I'm talking about fight sports, this is what I love. And by the way, this casual took 24 years of fucking graft, stacking shelves, working late. When I was at the Liverpool Echo, I covered Floyd Mayweather against Shane Mosley in Las Vegas. And people go, how the fuck did you go to Vegas to cover shit? How did you get a press pass for that? Because I applied. They didn't know. I applied, Liverpool, Daily Post and Echo. Oh, in fact, I just put Daily Post and Echo. So, you're an American media person going, oh, we've had a media pass here from the UK. Want to cover the fight? Mayweather Mosley. Daily Post. Sounds like a good one. Tick. So I ended up getting fucking 3 flights to Vegas. And luckily enough, because obviously the Echo weren't going to pay for me to go to cover the Floyd Mayweather fight, so I had to pay out my own money. Went to Vegas, got 3 flights to get there, like fucking all over. No one ever get on a plane in the UK and fly to Holland. It's going to be a long one. You know what I mean? Fly to Amsterdam, sit in Amsterdam airport, then fly to Philadelphia, sit in Philadelphia airport, then fly to Vegas or whatever. It was one of them. And I got there, and luckily enough, one of my mates, James Whelan, he owns James Roofing, like his sound. Him and all his mates were over there on a stag do. Because I didn't have any money for a decent hotel.
Jumped in with them.
So they just went, listen, just dive in here with us, lad. So they were on the lash the whole time, and I'm there covering the media day, coming back, writing stuff up. And obviously, once you're out there, then I was like, I'm out here now. So I rang every national newspaper, every radio station, boxing news. I'm here, I'm feet on the ground. You got anyone? Oh, actually, no. But you want 200 words? Sound 200 words. Send. There's 40 quid.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But then I knew what I wanted. I'm sitting ringside covering Floyd Mayweather against Shane Mosley, like in the middle of Vegas on my own. just thinking, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
This is what I want.
This is not work.
Don't get me wrong. Again, I had to take time off, and it cost me about $4,000 or whatever the flights were, or probably about 800 quid with those shitty flights. But again, you could argue that wasn't sacrifices because I wanted it. But I'm invested in my career now, because when I get out there, I'm like, Nick, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. The media girl, her name was Monica. She worked for Golden Boy at the time, or either way. Like, make sure you know it, introduce yourself, bomb. Everyone who works at the MGM, I go, yeah, Sam, yeah. So now years later, you go, remember when I seen you? Nice to see you again, yeah. So it doesn't matter. I just
put the time in. You put the time in, man.
Went after it.
I think that's a massive, like, you know, we'll probably end up doing about 4 hours if we get on this, but that's a society thing. Like, you know, so many people are scared to network, aren't they? And scared to put themselves out there. And, you know, we've spoke about this on the previous episodes. Scared to be shit. Scared to, like, you know, say, you know, maybe I'm not at your level, I'm not great, but nice to meet you. Know, any tips? People don't do that this day and age, or you know, very few do it. I think that's testament to you to get where you've got from to you know, start where you did.
They're the good bits. The shit bits are driving to fucking Lee Leisure Centre on a Sunday night, or missing mates' weddings to, you know, go and cover some mad fight in Sheffield or whatever it may be. You know, you put the hard yards in, you've got to, you know, otherwise you'll never make it.
No.
But now I get to look back and go, boss this, getting flown to Vegas, getting put up in a decent hotel, standing in front of a camp. Like, my wife laughs because she's like, you've got the best job in the world, because my working day might be like, you know, a 20-minute interview tomorrow with Leon Edwards, or going to Vegas, and like, there's lights, there's cameras, blah blah blah. But when we actually make the show, it's only 45 minutes of actually talking. And then my wife's like, what are you doing the rest of the day? And I'm like, looking at the pool, going, research, you know, I've got to research, I've got to watch all the college fights, got to do get him in, lads. Yeah. And then sitting by the pool with Adam going, don't fucking, I can't smash me time. The wife will go mad. What I've learned is, last Saturday, because we always get Saturdays off in Vegas, obviously it's fight day, you're not wanting until the commentary or whatever later. Off Saturdays, taxi to the mall, straight into a decent shop, get a handbag or a sweater, or, you know what I mean, and put the hard yards in with a nice little purse or something like that. And then come back, and she looks at the tan and goes, are you taking the piss? Kids are climbing off the walls and all that. Oh, Olivia's been sick and the baby's done that and blah blah. And you're like, there's a handbag.
Yeah. Not if not organised, mate.
You've got to be happy life.
Mate, preach it to the choir. But honestly, I've loved this, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely up there, mate. In top 3 podcast. I mean, again, Jordan, mate, massive thanks, mate. Nick, I've absolutely loved listening to this, mate. You're obviously very knowledgeable, and your story's great, and I've loved it.
Spot on.
Mate,
Cheers,
next
boys.
time I come, we'll talk about celebrity stories.
Yeah.
Like with Jason Statham backstage at fights, and Cuba Gooding Jr. The Cuba Gooding Jr.
You got it. I was going to say, hang on. Give us one of these now.
Statham was just a tool because he was bladdered and he thought he was hard, and you're like, mate, you're just an actor. You're a fucking diver.
Is he not like swept up on all that though in real life?
He was just swanning around like he owned the gaff, and he's about 5.5 foot, and I was like, you're not the, who is he, the Punisher or something? You're not the real Punisher, mate. You're fucking Tom Daly, but lucky that's all you are. You know what I mean? That's all he is. But the best one was, so we're out in Vegas post-fight, definitely UFC, it might have been Conor. We're on the Lash, and we're in New York, and there's this piano bar in New York. Anyone that's been to Vegas will know about it. It's wicked. It stays open till all hours, and there's 2 fellas on grand pianos battling. And what they say is, if you put you put $5 on the piano and pick any song that's ever been written, they can do it. That's the whole shtick of it. Anyway, it's always bouncing in there, and we're in there. We're having a few drinks. Yeah, man, we're having what a great show that was. Everyone's patting each other on the back. Next thing you know, that Cuba Gooding Jr. Get to fuck, show me the money, and here's where I get him over. So we get to Cuba Gooding Jr. over, we're all going, hi Cuba, and he's in, and he's like, yeah, and we're like, fucking get the shots in. So Cuba's going, we're having a proper wicked time, and he's going, come back to the suite, we'll keep the party going. We're like, mate, we are partying with Rod Tidwell. This is amazing. So we're like that, then taking photos on Instagram. Hey, Rod Tidwell, he's a fight disciple. Fucking get him. Blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, gets a message. You do know Cuba Gooding Jr. has like been exposed for, you know, forcing himself on women and shit like that.
Has he? Yeah.
Oh,
No. So I'm like, holy fuck.
selfies everywhere.
We're not touching. He's a fight disciple. He's one of the lads. Look, he's out with us. I was just like, oh man. So then you start thinking, that's why he was so into us. All the Americans were ignoring him, and we're like, idiots. Cuba, shoot me, man. And he was like, yeah, boys, I'm in. Like, oh my god, unbelievable.
Oh, mate,
shit,
it was
yeah,
too much.
so-
I've landed on my fucking feet here with these.
He's haven't got a clue yet. He's the
Back to Sweet Boys.
They know nothing about the last 5 years of my career, which has gone like that. They're like,
I didn't know that even now.
yeah.
Haven't you ever seen that?
Did you like the Jimmy Savile type stuff? Or?
No.
I think it's for
like,
women.
just women,
I think it's, you know.
But yeah, haven't you
using
seen
his
that thing where he
position.
gets arrested? There's like a famous gif, isn't he, when he gets arrested? He's like walks out of his house, he's
I
blabbing.
used to love him, lad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, mate, there'll definitely be a part 2.
What a story to end on there.
Oh, awesome.
Nick,
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you
Brilliant.
coming on. Keep
Love it.
going. Podcast wicked. Keep getting your guests on. Keep it diverse as well.
Yeah.
We're kind of, you know, fight sports, aren't we?
Yeah.
But the beauty of this is you can get anyone and talk about anything. I know the chef, the lad you had on this week, was it last week, the chef?
Dave,
Yeah.
Dave
Wow,
Critchley.
Mad story.
Got a
he's got as well.
criminologist on tomorrow.
Wicked.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, man. Glad you're enjoying it.
Spot on, boys. Brilliant. Thank you.
I aspire to have a studio like this.